My son managed to read our will, and it's destroying our family. I'm going to preface this by saying I love all three of my sons equally. They are 29, 24, and 22. It is my unequivocal truth. It's just that my ex-wife's involvement with my oldest son has really introduced a lot of toxicity and complications in our life. After years of emotional and financial abuse, my wife and I have made a very conscious decision to completely cut my ex-wife out of our lives once my son turned 18. We let him have his relationship with his mother without any interference from us or any negative words. I disagree with how a lot of their relationship is, but I have kept my mouth shut to keep the peace. After losing literally everything after my divorce, I have built a new business with my wife, and it's doing very well. All three of our sons work in the business. A week ago, all the kids were over for lunch. I was stupid and left our recently drafted will on my office desk, and my oldest son managed to see it. Our company and our home was willed to my two youngest sons. My oldest was given a trust that pays out some money every 5 years. I feel like I have to explain myself over why the will was laid out as it was. My ex-wife still has a lot of influence over my son, and at the suggestion of our lawyer, created the will this way so she couldn't interfere in the company and home. If she were to pass away before us, the will would immediately be rewritten to divide the company and home equally. The plan was to explain this to our son gently and not for him to see it without any context. My son was understandably upset, but his behavior that day exceeded all levels of decency. He stormed downstairs, threw things around, and used disgusting language against my wife and I. Our sons nearly got into a fist fight. I am devastated. I have already apologized and forwarded him emails to my lawyer telling him I want the will to be changed to split everything equally, but the damage is done. He's now spreading horrible lies about us and his brothers to everyone in the family, even to the point of accusing us of being racists. He is half Indian, half white. Brothers and my wife are so hurt hearing this. It couldn't be any further from the truth. It's the same thing my ex-wife liked to accuse us of over the years. He has refused to come into work since last week, and I've been scrambling to do a lot of his work. I don't know how to fix this. He won't take my calls. My ex-wife has used this situation to make absolutely insane posts on Facebook. I'm considering legal action over, but I know that will just add gasoline to the fire with regards to my son. I'm not sure how to salvage this, and I'm really afraid that some of the things he's said won't easily be forgotten. My younger sons have already been questioned on social media by their cousins about the racism accusations. It's a very uncomfortable thing to approach. My wife is also not over the names that she was called by him, even though she says she is. In the comments, hi, unrelated to the main question which is being covered well by other commenters, as a lawyer, I wonder whether you could prepare your will with a contingent bequest that left his share to a trust if his mother was alive, but to him absolutely if she predeceased him. That way you wouldn't have to remember to change it if your ex died. People have a depressing low rate of updating their wills. A lot of litigation arises from the need to fix problems arising from this. Alternatively, think about leaving everything to a trust, or two trusts. A trust would provide a firewall protecting the assets from personal financial disasters or mismanagement of any of the children or a trading company. And two trusts, one for the home and one for the business, would enhance this. Trustees would ideally be at least one independent trustee, your lawyer or their trustee company, and your wife, you, and another family member such as a sibling of yours, etc., in case you do. Having your sons as trustees would be likely to generate trustee conflicts. Perhaps more relevant to the main question, I think your son's problem is that you haven't even, from what your post says, divided your estate in equal 1/3 shares. And if his share is ring-fenced by a trust, you seem to have left the two most important family assets in your two sons from your current marriage, absolutely. Your son's reaction is uncalled for, but his hurt is understandable. I expect that this is going to blight your and your wife's relationship with him for some time, unfortunately. And I personally wouldn't rewrite your will to simply equal thirds because it doesn't deal with the real problem you anticipate, and it's not going to mollify him anyway. Speak to a good estate planning lawyer, plan strategically, and don't react impulsively. Good luck, OP. Another commenter says, my bio father left me when I was 4. My stepdad married my mum when I was 7. My mum and stepdad, who I'll refer to as dad from here on out, then had a son, my little brother. Growing up, my dad would take my brother and I to Ohio to see my dad's side of the family. We would spend time with our grandpa, my dad's father, and the rest of my dad's family. Every year for 12 years. When my grandfather passed, my little brother got several $1,000s for his college education, and I got nothing. That hurt more than anything in my entire life, and I've had painful breakups. I've had multiple surgeries, I've been in horrible car accidents. It's not about the money. We weren't destitute, but we weren't super rich either. I already had a scholarship for school, so it wasn't like I was suddenly going to use this money for anything. It was the fact that my grandfather evidently loved my little brother more than me, and I didn't even find out until after he was gone. Berg Bauer replies, maybe not relevant, but did your grandfather know that you already had a scholarship for school? My grandfather willed almost all of his money to 3 of my cousins, they are siblings. There are 10 of us total in 3 different families, because their family is much less well off, by a huge margin, than the rest of ours, and he knew that they really needed the money for college and living expenses. Of course, there was never any ill will about it from any of us who didn't get much. Maybe something similar happened in your case. If not, I'm sorry. The Modlice replies, this is the kind of conversation you have while alive. My dad has done very well for himself in his life. My dad's brother has not. When my grandmother dies, she is leaving the house to my uncle because he needs it more, and it would mean little, financially, not emotionally of course, to my dad and our family. The difference is that we all know this. My grandmother has talked extensively about this, and my dad and even myself and my brother, so that we will not feel left out of the ancestral home and question her love for us after her death for even a second. And now, onto the update. I have read everyone's advice, and there were many opinions that were very different. But at the end of the day, I do admit this was all my fault, and it's on me to make it right. I'm just not sure how. My son showed up to work today to tell me that he was leaving for another job. With a heavy heart, I accepted. We agreed on a severance package that was just a lump sum payment because he felt that I had cheated him by making him invest his time in a company that he was never going to be a part of. I broke down in tears and begged him to reconsider. I tried to explain and promise to be more transparent with the will process, but it seems to be too little too late. He had some very harsh words for me and made cruel accusations that I treated him poorly over the years and brought up situations that I literally had no control over. There were threats of fraud and discrimination and reporting me to the labor board, and I just gave in and went to the bank and had a bank draft made. I feel absolutely defeated because I knew he wasn't going to hear me. I asked if we could go for counseling, and he said only if I can give him back the years he wasted in the company. Through it all, I did see that I hurt him greatly, and I don't think I can ever make it like it was before. Maybe after he's had some space from me, I can try contacting him again. My wife and I and his brothers have been uninvited from his wedding in June. I am completely heartbroken. In the comments, Lollipop Lady says, I'm just happy your son was lucky enough to find out while you were alive and was able to confront you. There is still a chance to heal old wounds. It would have been awful for him for his father to die and then get this devastating news in his grief with no explanation or apology. I'm just interested in those stories that he had no control over and messed up on. LC Mum 1231 says, this story made me very sad for all parties involved, but especially your son. While I agree that children are not entitled to their parents' money, it's much more than that here. Imagine growing up with divorced parents who, for the most part, hate each other. Your dad starts a new family, has more children, you only get his time 50%. Not his fault, but it's unfair to you regardless. Your half-siblings get him 100% of the time, building that bond. You grow up with all sorts of effed up insecurities, but you try to get over it. You convince yourself that of course your dad loves you as much. You start to believe in that. You invest your time to work for him. You spend time with his family, and things seem good, and then this happens. You were right to feel less than. Insecurities validated. On top of that, your dad's explanation is, basically, he can't trust you as a full-grown adult to handle your own finances and business because of your mother. I'm sorry, but that hurts. Not saying it justifies his behavior, but he's going through some painful stuff. Froggy McNasty says, not to kick you while you're down, but at least now you know how he feels. You put him in a position where when you died he worked for his half-brothers, you literally put them ahead of him, and he did waste his life working for you. Wrote a will so he would have no part in the decision-making, just a check every 5 years, and made his half-brothers his bosses essentially once you died. You can't blame him in the least for reacting how he did. You betrayed him on a level that validated all the bullshit that your ex-wife spewed. So ask yourself, why would he want you to be a part of his family when you made it so clear that you didn't think he was worth being equal with your new one? F Your Mermaid replies, this was exactly how I felt after reading his original post. Who knows what else his eldest son had to have gone through after reacting so severely to the will. I hope his son finds peace and never has to worry about putting his own children in the same situation emotionally. What really sucks is that OP doesn't even see that his hatred for his ex has blinded him to what he's done to his son. I don't think he's intending for it to be this way, but that's just what it became. He hates his ex so much that he was willing to hurt his son for some perceived threat that may or may not happen. That he had so little trust in his son, wrote him off just on the chance that he might get to spite his ex. I hope the son gets some help, and that OP gets some help for himself because he majorly effed up and is too busy responding to comments trying to save face rather than address or ask what he can do now that this shit has hit the fan. Microgiant says, I have to wonder what the value of the trust that paid out every 5 years was. Was it remotely comparable to a third of the business that the oldest son thought he was going to be a co-owner of one day? Yeah, I call bullshit on that too. If he doesn't want his ex to have any influence over his eldest son in ruining the business, why not just pay him out a lump sum worth of a third of his company? He's not a child anymore who needs to have his money managed. I guess to wrap this one up, personally, it feels as though this is a case of missing reasons. As I always say, these posts are very biased to make the person writing it seem to be somewhat of a good guy, but you just dig into this a bit, you look at what their replies are in the comments. I feel terribly sorry for OP's son. I do wish that they find happiness in their life and they can move forward from this because, yeah, that's a massive time sink on one's life and a gigantic betrayal that OP doesn't seem to be at all sorry for. To me, it reads as though OP is sorry they got caught, but they don't seem to be making any actual moves towards reconciliation. What do you guys think of this one? Let me know in the comments down below. Posted by user Throwaway Baby Name, titled, Am I the asshole for breaking my fiance's family tradition by naming my son what I wanted? Throwaway because I have in-laws on Reddit. So myself, 25 female, and my fiance, 27 male, have a 2-month-old son. We are overjoyed at being parents, but most of my in-laws are refusing to even see our baby because of a decision we made concerning his name. My in-laws have a tradition of giving the firstborn son of every generation the same name. Let's say it's Peter. This has been going on for about 7 generations already, and they are very serious about it. My fiance's eldest cousin was the latest person to get named Peter. Every one of his cousins has only had daughters so far, so our baby is the first son of his generation, and consequently should get the name. I have no problem with the name Peter, and would have been okay with naming my son that. Unfortunately, that was also the name of my uncle, who died before I was born. I won't get into details, but it was tragic and traumatizing for my family. My father never got over losing his younger brother. My grandmother asked for the family not to name any of our future children Peter during her lifetime. My mother-in-law and father-in-law knew about this promise, and at first seemed to not only be okay with us avoiding the name Peter, but also supportive of the one that we chose. However, my grandmother sadly passed away when I was 7 months pregnant. We traveled for her funeral, and on our last days there, my in-laws called to offer me their condolences. Then my mother-in-law asked me if I was willing to think about the name Peter now. Suddenly, they were insistent that the name we chose was awful, and we had to honor their tradition. According to them, they had only agreed to make an exception for us for my grandmother's sake, and had no obligation to keep it now that she had passed. My family agrees that while it's true we don't have to avoid the name anymore, it still doesn't feel right to use it. My fiancé agrees with me as well, but his parents spent the last few weeks of pregnancy trying to convince us to change our minds about the name. When our baby was born and we named him what we wanted, my in-laws were furious that we had broken a 7-generation-old family tradition. Some of them hadn't previously wanted to name their sons Peter, but did it anyway for the family's sake. They said our decision was selfish and that my family should have moved on by now. This has truly nothing to do with whether my family's moved on or not. It just felt like a betrayal to my grandmother and uncle's memories to even consider using the name. My father-in-law offered us $1,000 to change our son's name to Peter after he was born. That was 2 months ago, and neither of my fiancé's parents have met the baby or seen us since I was pregnant. Most of my in-laws are on their side, and this is causing a huge rift between my fiancé and his family. He assures me he is fine, but I'm starting to feel really guilty about this. Am I the arsehole? Edit, the tradition started, as far as I know, when OG Peter died, and his son, also named Peter, named his firstborn after his father. Peter III ended up having the first son of the following generation, and did the same thing. That one died before having children, so his sister gave the name to her son, and so on. The name Peter is very common in my country, so none of them ever got bullied over it, and the fact that it was also my uncle's name isn't as unlikely as one might think. Also, middle names aren't used in my country. Most people get the maternal surname before the paternal one instead. And edit, it wasn't $1,000. Different country, different currency. It's still a lot of money, but would probably translate to about $200 USD. I guess my personal beliefs on this situation is that tradition is just peer pressure from dead people. You can choose to follow it and you can choose to respect it if you would like to, but you don't have to. Only these idiots that are alive and want the tradition to continue are going to continue doing that, and they're the only ones that are going to give you grief over this. It sucks that they can't see this and refuse to see this from your point of view and are just dogpiling on you and refusing to see the baby. That's their choice. I don't agree with them, but I do agree with you in sticking to your guns. So I think you're not the asshole for this. In the comments, Rich Signal 7022 says, "Not the asshole. After 7 generations, I think it's time that their family moved on." And OP replies, "I've always been surprised it even lasted that long." And no offense, but that's a pretty vague tradition. How do they even keep track of each new gen to determine this? I have cousins 15 years older than me and 15 years younger. My husband has cousins 25 years younger than him. At some point, this has got to get more confusing than it's worth, right? And OP replies, "Generation basically means line of cousins to them. I only kind of get it, but I think basically every first time a cousin has a child, he or she is the first of the generation. My maternal family kind of works like that too. I'm 20 years older than one of my youngest cousins, but we're still from the same generation. His uncle, while only 4 years older than me, is from my mum's." Sorry, I'm really bad at explaining this. Damon says, "Here's something that might blow their minds. Your son probably shares very little genetics with their great-grandparents. Your son has 2 copies of every gene, one from you and one from your husband. When your husband produced the sperm that made your son, it randomly selected one of each of his genes. That means that it's possible that he passed on all of the genes that he got from his mother and none of the genes that he got from his father, and the same goes for your egg. On average, it's 50-50, but even that means that you share 50/25, 12.5, 6.25, 3.125, % of your genes with an ancestor who is 1, 2, ... 7 generations back. Basically, they're making a big deal about dissension in one particular line and ignoring all the other genetic lines that have all contributed. But chances are, at this point, the newest generation barely has any genes at all from the foundational Peter." Hell yeah, let's go says, "Not the asshole. Family name traditions are weird, and you can do whatever you want and name your baby whatever you want. Keep pushing the 'I'm honoring my late grandmother's final wishes' hard so they see how unhinged they sound asking you to flout that." Derpney13 replies, "And as a grandma, the idea of rejecting a child based on a name is simply trifling. It's downright shallow, petty, and a real ugly representation of one's integrity. Honestly, the longer these people avoided my child, the less their value would be worth in my child's life. Who would want such people around after a while? What would they bring to the table for my child? How would people like this positively enrich his or her development? I feel bad for OP's partner, as this behavior surely has hurt him. Otherwise, I would consider this behavior a possibly important reveal to who these people are and what kind of chaos they could be capable of. And now, on to the update. Thank you so much to everyone who commented and offered support. A lot has happened since I posted, so I thought I'd give you an update. About a week after my post, my fiancé's parents contacted us. They apologized for their behavior, and they begged to meet my son. They said they were ready to leave the naming debacle behind and truly wanted to be involved in their grandson's life. We were skeptical, but invited them over to meet the baby. The visit went well. They began coming over almost every day during the next 3 weeks. I noticed neither of them ever called my son by his name, but I didn't point it out. For the first time in months, things seemed good between my fiancé and his parents. One day, my fiancé was helping my father-in-law with something at our place, so my mother-in-law and I went back to the park with my baby. Sometime later, I had to go to the bathroom, so I left him in the stroller with her. When I got back, she was sitting on a park bench, chatting with a woman who was cooing over my son. I went over there and introduced myself as son's name Mom, and she said, I thought his name was Peter. I didn't say a word, and neither did my mother-in-law. She followed me to the car, and we went back to my apartment. On the way there, I texted my fiancé about what had happened. The moment we got there, he kicked both his parents out of our place. He had read my texts and confronted his father. Thankfully, my father-in-law is a terrible liar and confessed immediately. Apparently, both my in-laws only call my son Peter. That includes whenever they're talking about him, every time they introduce him to someone else, and even baby talking to him on the few occasions they were left alone with him. Neither of them are embarrassed by this, and they both think they're in the right. We are heartbroken, especially my fiancé, not only because his parents can't let go of their pride, but also because the name we chose for our son means a lot to us both. I blame myself for encouraging my fiancé to allow them near our son. I was raised in a different city than all my grandparents and always wished they could have been more involved in my life. Losing my grandmother didn't help. Pretty much every doubt I had only existed because I thought that it would be important for my son to grow up with all of his grandparents around. But now, all of my guilt is gone. If they can't respect my son enough to call him by his name, they don't deserve to be in his life. I hope they enjoyed the 3 weeks they had with their grandson, because that's all they're getting until they get their heads out of their asses. In the comments, Ingenate Kenny says, "It's a sad situation, and I'm sorry about it, OP. You gave them a chance, and they threw it away like chumps, and then you and your husband communicated and made an adult decision on something so difficult together. You should be proud. I hope your grandson grows up proud of his parents and his name." Is this really the hill the parents chose to die on? This is so effing stupid. The in-laws are being incredibly dense. They came around once, and I suspect that they will do it again. Give them a few months to stew about it while you post up happy videos of your kid being awesome and cute. In the meantime, find the most awesome and colorful decorations that you can with the kid's name on them and cover their room with them. The in-laws should be required to get monogrammed gifts for the baby every event with his correct name until they settle down. Sorry, mother-in-law, you can't come see Nathan unless you get him a 1-year-old onesie with his real name written on it. Tasty Championship says, "I am so sorry to hear this. How disrespectful. It is understandable that you want to set and maintain boundaries with them when they have not shown your family respect and continue to put their needs above yours." Yikes. Are they psychotic and unhinged about other things in life, or just this one issue? OP replies, "According to my fiancé, they've always been a little bit entitled, but I never really saw them enough to be able to say that. I will say that, though they were polite, they very clearly didn't care about me until we moved in together. My mother-in-law pretended not to remember my name every time she saw me, and my father-in-law would lose interest in any conversations that weren't about him. Once it was clear me and my fiancé were in for the long term, they started acting a lot more friendly towards me, but it never seemed sincere." Ellie replies, "I've had a similar issue. They kept calling me by the ex's name and also one of their siblings' names because they're similar. I can understand the sibling one because of how close the names are, but not the ex. It was clearly intentional, because once the distance went away, harassment started. Every chance was taken to give me shit for something. Pro tip, if invasive in-laws suddenly hang around a lot more than usual or ask heaps more questions, keep an eye out. They are up to something. Seems like unfortunately you ran into this too. I hope they do pull their heads out of their asses, because when it comes to a name, it won't be long before your kiddo can correct them himself. It'd be great if he didn't have to do that, of course, but imagine the embarrassment they'd have when he himself corrected them instead of you when the stranger was talking to mother-in-law. So much more shame. It also unfortunately may look like he was kidnapped or not in safe hands if the person looking after him can't even get his name right. Best of luck with it all, OP. I hope the dust settles and everything is chill for all again soon. And OP replies, when the lady from the park asked about his name, it did cross my mind that she might think that I was a kidnapper. His name is written on one of his blankets though, which calmed me down a little. Still, I can't help but think of what my mother-in-law would have done had the woman threatened to call the cops. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a fun situation to be involved in. I personally wouldn't like to imagine how that would play out, but definitely seems as though it would result in very low contact, close to complete no contact, again, for an extended period of time with these people. I stand by my judgment on the am I the arsehole one. I do think that these people need to get over the name, and I think they're assholes for their continued actions. Especially in this update, they deserve no sympathy after what they've done. But I'll turn this to you guys. What do you guys think of this one? Let me know down in the comments below. Our next post is by user AverageHungry6981, titled, Teenage son messed up big time, and I am afraid of what happens next. Throwaway because I'm ashamed to have this linked to my main. My son is 17 and just started driving. He used my car, a Honda Civic, to go to and from school sometimes. I was at home this week when 3 police cars came in our driveway and officers were banging on our door. Turns out my son rear-ended a vehicle and drove away. To make it even worse, the driver was a cop in his personal truck. It took maybe 15 minutes from the incident to when they came knocking. The hit truck has no damage. It was a tap at maybe 15 miles per hour into his towing hitch. Our Civic's license plate is bent and there is some bumper damage. The truck driver filed an insurance claim with our insurance. My son admitted fault. There is also video footage of everything. I am beyond freaked out, and I haven't slept since. I scolded my son, but there is so much that I can do now. He says he freaked out about hitting an expensive new truck and just drove off. I explained how wrong that was. What I am more concerned about is that the drivers pressed charges to teach this kid a lesson. The cops on scene said that it's up to the other driver if he wants this charged, and he chose to. We were told my son will be formally charged on Monday by the prosecutor and possibly arrested. Fleeing the scene of an accident is an arrestable offense here, and it carries jail time too. I'm scared shitless. I'm a single mom. I can't afford to pay lawyers to keep my son out of prison when we barely afford rent, food, and bills. I know my insurance rates will be effed for years to come. His too, probably. What do we do here? Thanks. In the comments, Kitchen Economics says, I had a friend that did the exact same thing at 16, but not to a nice truck, it was a nice BMW. Cops came to his house and took down his info, then he was given a ticket to pay like $1,000 in fines and had to do 16 hours of community service. He was charged with a misdemeanor hit and run, but the charges were dropped once the fine and community service was paid. Insurance went up for a while too. This was in California. Not a lawyer, but this is likely what you're looking at, OP. Depends on the judge you get and if your kid shows remorse or not. OP and his mum can also petition the judge to try a probationary period in place of a stiff fine and community service. This was me at 17, and I got off with court costs of $150 and 12 months of no moving violations, along with 30 hours of community service. Are you in the US? If the prosecutor does decide to bring criminal charges, your son should be appointed a public defender. Depending on the jurisdiction, it may end up being someone who specializes in working with juvenile clients. They will help you navigate the system and work out a resolution with the court. Be very clear at his court appearances that you cannot afford an attorney. You should have someone who these kinds of cases are an everyday thing for at your side. As a first offense, and him being 17, I don't think prison is likely. Also, you can get a public defender. He might do jail time or community service in probation type situation, possibly not able to have a license for a while. It's all based on damages. Your attorney will settle it down. It's a shit thing that he did, but they'll recognize he is young, he got scared, and he owned up to it right away. And now, onto the update. I really appreciate everyone's input and words, some good, some bad. We've been a ball of stress since last week. He was officially charged with leaving the scene of an accident and fined for failure to maintain speed. I spoke to a few lawyers around town, and they all agreed there is zero chance the DA will drop the charge. Our county is very tough on crime, and they're campaigning on it. The DA refused any plea. They have lots of video evidence from the truck front and back dash cameras, a gas station, and an intersection camera. Our focus is to try and get probation instead of jail time. I need to come up with a few hundred for the fine and $1,500 for the lawyer. That's in addition to the insurance rates that will definitely go up. As a kicker, my insurance has small accident forgiveness for damages lower than $500. The insurance estimate for the truck's damaged hitch came out to $504. They also want to suspend my son's license, so he won't be able to go to and from any job that isn't close by. We live in a really spread out area where a car is basically mandatory. I am just so upset with him and his decision making, trying to keep it together and work our way out of this, but it's frustrating. After watching the video, I got even more mad. He clearly recognized he hit the truck, then drove around it, and off he went. In the comments, Ollie says, I have no advice, but want to say to you that I'm sorry you're going through this. Your kid made a huge mistake, and I'd be furious with him if I were you. But teenagers are quite prone to making stupid decisions. This is one crappy lesson for him, and I hope the best case scenario plays out. I agree with others who say he needs to pay you back. Is the area you live in okay for bicycling? Can he work somewhere within biking distance? Yeah, I think every kid gets one of these big mistakes, though this was a particularly large one. I hope this kid owns his mistake and pays back his parent at least the $1,500 for the lawyer. Set up a payment plan, say $100 per month, and for every money transfer he sends, make him write he's sorry for what he did. I once hit a parked cop car when picking up a friend from her home. The cop wasn't in it, the street was deserted, and I will admit, I had a few moments of thinking that I should pretend it didn't happen or leave. The urge to not have to deal with the potential shit show was that strong. Luckily, I came to my senses and recalled just how bad it would be to not admit what I'd done and be caught later. I remember that anyone could be watching from their house, including the cop, or have cameras, or be in their yard, etc. As expected, the cop was pissed. His buddies called out 3 squad cars with lights flashing and a crime scene photographer. Neighbors all crowded the street to stare at me. It was scary and humiliating, but I didn't get arrested. I didn't get a ticket, and they even let me pay for the damage directly, but there is no way that I would have gotten off that easy if I had run. Let this be a reminder to any parents. If you don't explicitly teach your kid how to respond to an emergency or accident, they won't respond correctly. Do not assume driver's ed or public school will teach someone what to do in an accident. In my state, it never did. I was smart enough to Google it before I started driving, but my parents didn't bother teaching me. And if I got in an accident at 17, I wouldn't know what was right or wrong either. Seriously, I don't care how old or independent or whatever else you think your kid is. If you've never explained to them, this is how to dial 911 and here is what you say, or, if police pull you over, do as they ask and nothing else, you have not given them those tools. I've had to explain to people my parents' age how to respond to situations like this because they were never taught either. Just because it's obvious to you doesn't mean that it's actually obvious. Empower people you are responsible for. Our next post is by user Celia Kitties, titled, Am I the asshole for throwing out my husband's friend's food? So my husband loves his buddy Steve. I would love Steve a lot more if he wasn't always trying to give my cat human food when he is visiting. I've explained it to him many times. Steve, do not give her anything. She is only allowed to have cat food. I have had to do this literally every time he has been in my house with food. Nevertheless, Steve persists. I come home yesterday, and Steve and my husband are throwing darts in the garage. Then they go out and come back with some fast food, including a meal for me. I turn my back for one moment to get some plates, and when I turn back around, I see Steve offering my cat a piece of garlic bread. I yell at him to stop it already, grab his whole meal, and dump it in the trash. He calls me a bitch and reaches for my meal. I grab it away and yell at him to get the hell away from my cat until he's learned some manners. They go back out to the garage and I overhear my husband trying to reason with him a bit, but he's not having it, and he storms out. Steve is pissed, husband is understanding where I'm at with him always trying to feed the cat, but also annoyed and says that I had no right to throw out his meal. I really don't want to see Steve in my house at all anytime soon, but at the very least, I don't want him there with any food until he learns to keep it to himself. Honestly, if it was other foods, I'd be like, maybe not, maybe a bit of an overreaction. But as you said, nonetheless, understandable, and your house, your rules, very much entitled to preserving your cat's life, but garlic of all things. Huge no-no. He's trying to kill your cat if he's giving it garlic bread. Hey, Cheryl, you don't mind if I feed your cat arsenic real quick, do ya? Sick, he loves it, look at this. He's eating it right up, he loves that arsenic. I'm gonna go with a not the arsehole judgment for this one, OP. I kinda think he deserves it for trying to feed your cat poison and not understanding what he was doing and then saying that you're the problem. In the comments, Saint Alvis says, not the arsehole. Garlic is famously poisonous to cats. What the actual F? Cricket162 replies, not the arsehole. My boyfriend tried to give our new kitten meat that was seasoned with garlic the other day, and I barely stopped her from eating it. I had to Google it to prove to him that it's poisonous for the kitten. I put my foot down and told him that the kitten is never allowed to have human food. OP, tell your husband how toxic garlic is for cats so he hopefully understands the severity of the situation. If Steve can't respect your rule regarding the cat, tell them that they'll have to hang out somewhere else if he won't stop giving human food to the cat. Anonymous for this says, not the arsehole. Garlic is toxic to cats. Steve thinks that he can overrule you in your own house. While throwing out a guest's food is not polite, food was the focus of Steve's misbehavior. Consequences are important. Your husband doesn't seem to understand that Steve does not outrank you in your own house, and it would be a perfectly reasonable consequence to say that Steve is no longer welcome in your house. Aside from the attempted poisoning, what's getting me right now is that Steve called her a bitch in their home. That is a trash word to use against a woman. OP's husband should have shut that shit down immediately. Thank you. I would have gone in on both of them had my husband allowed his buddy to disrespect me like that in my own house. My guess is that's the point. Steve wants to stir shit and cause problems with OP's marriage. Dozens of different potential reasons why, but OP needs to talk it out with husband, and husband needs to have a long conversation with Steve. I disagree. Husband needs to have a short conversation with Steve. Never feed the cat again, apologize to OP, and never use that language again about OP, or the friendship is over. End of conversation. And I kind of agree with that one there, actually. I will renege on my previous point of saying, you know what, I can see how it might have been an overreaction had it not been garlic. I glossed over the fact that he called her a bear. I completely just forgot that happened in the short time that I read this story. Completely unacceptable behavior. Stand up for your partner. Do not take this disrespect lightly and slap that man back in his place. If he refuses to respect those boundaries, get rid of him, plain and simple. I'm sure there's more Steves out there that we can be good friends with. Posted by user ThrowRA titled, Am I the arsehole for breaking up my engagement because what my fiancé said about my mum? I, 26 female, am not from the USA, so I might have some grammatical errors. So my dad left my mum and I when I was only 5 years old. I also have a brother, 21 male. He left the country with his mistress and never tried to contact us. We were really poor. My mum had to do some immoral stuff to get the food on the table. She was a stripper and also sometimes pleased men to get money for us. She put my brother and I through school. I understood why my mum did what she did because we had no money and she wanted us to have a life better than ours. And I am not ashamed because of it. I also started working part-time when I was 14. I was a good student, so I got a scholarship to a good university. My mum eventually stopped stripping when my brother got a part-time job too. She now only works as a waitress. I met my fiancé, Javi, 27 male, in college. This was my first serious relationship. We both loved each other. I never told Javi about my mum's past because my mum made me promise to never say that to anyone. I kept that, but it felt so wrong to keep this huge information away from my fiancé. Javi knew about us. He only knew that my family was extremely poor. He doesn't care about that. He is a very sweet guy who always takes care of me. He even covered some of the cost of my brother's education as well, even though I told him not to. My mom also likes him, and that's why she told me not to tell Javi anything about her past or what she did for a living. So a week ago, my mom and I went to Javi's house to meet his parents. I didn't realize his aunt and uncle would also be there. Upon seeing his uncle, my mum's face went white as if she saw a ghost. His uncle also kept staring at my mum as if he knows her. My mum felt uncomfortable and said that she wants to go home. Javi was confused by it, but nonetheless, we left earlier than we anticipated. The next day, my fiancé came to our place and he shouted at me that I lied to him. He said that I'm a gold digger just like my mother, and my mother is the reason why his uncle's first marriage broke. I asked him to explain what the hell he's talking about. He said that his uncle knew my mum because he was a regular customer of her and often hired her for her services. His wife caught them red-handed and immediately filed for divorce. My mum was crying and said that she didn't know he was married. She never asks men about their marital status. I told him that he has no right to speak to my mum like that, and his uncle was fully to blame because he was a married man who was hiring escorts for himself. My mum has no obligation towards his marriage. Javi still blamed me and my mum and said that he felt deceived. He said to my face that he doesn't want to date a whore's daughter because I will probably invite men just like my mum. My mum had to beg him to not break the engagement. I am tired. If I do end up marrying him, my mum always would have to suffer because of it. I don't want that, so I gave him his engagement ring back and told him to never show his face again. My mum is angry because she thinks this is my only chance to get married because no other guy would want to marry into a family where the mum works as a sex worker. But I think I did the right thing because I'm not ashamed of my mum. I didn't even want to hide it in the first place. I wanted to tell him the truth, but my mum refused it. So, am I the asshole? Edit, I need to clear things out a bit. Javi knows everything about my life. He knows my dad fled the country and we had to live in poverty because of it. He knows my mum got pregnant way too young. I did give him hints that my mum had to do shady things to get by. He probably thought that my mum stole things. But I didn't disclose that she was a sex worker. I wanted to tell him, but my mum said not to because she doesn't want things to escalate. Also, I never asked Javi to pay for my brother's education. He did it from the goodwill of his own heart. I did promise to pay him back. I am not after his money. I do love him a lot, and even though we are broken up now, I still miss him. We have been together for 6 years. It is not easy to throw away those 6 years just like that. OP, I understand where you're coming from and I understand that it's hard, but how about we do a little exercise where you remove yourself from the situation? Let's say your friend is out here and your friend has a boyfriend who's screaming at him that she's a whore because her mum had to be a sex worker to get by. Would you say, you know what, he's a generous, nice man and you're in love with him. You should just forgive him for that. I don't think you would, and I don't think any rational person would give them that advice. This man said a bit too much Kool-Aid. I think he's a loser, and I think he needs to get a life. While he is indeed entitled to his own opinions, I think his opinions suck ass. I think this is a morally bankrupt man who doesn't see the circumstances that you guys were in and blames her for his uncle being a complete piece of shit. It is not at all her fault, and it just reveals further layers of bullshit underneath Javi, or whatever this guy's name is, mask. The mask has well and truly slipped. This guy sucks. He is an asshole. I think you will be perpetuating his assholery if you stay with him. Please leave him, OP, for the sake of all that is good in this world. Not the asshole for now. In the comments, Salamander Hot 2799 says, "Oh, so you are to be a whore because of your mum. But doesn't that mean he's probably going to use escorts regularly? It runs in his family to be unfaithful according to his logic. And you just know he'll blame the sex worker for his choice to cheat anyway. OP can do better." It always bothers me when people get mad at the homewrecker. Like, they're the ones who cheated. I mean, if they knew the cheater was married, then they're just as much to blame. But if they didn't, then the responsibility falls solely on the cheater. Eggplant Original says, "Not the asshole, but your ex sure is. You dodged a bullet getting rid of him. You will find the right person for you. Give your mum a hug and be happy that you aren't marrying into that awful family." And OP replies, "I know that, and I understand why he is upset. Sex work is heavily criticized in my country, to the point even doctors refuse to treat them. I understand his family's stigma, especially since his uncle was caught with my mum, so they have a reason to hate her. I hoped that he would be a little bit understanding about our situation. If my mum didn't start working as a stripper, she would have never been able to send us to school or college. I did love him a lot." His attitude is telling, to be honest. Blaming your mum when it was his uncle who screwed around makes me irrationally annoyed. No. Rationally annoyed and rationally infuriated. An entire culture that has men willing to pay for sex and then condemn those who are forced to resort to it. Scum. This is the thing that really irritates me the most. Her mum didn't make any vows or promises to that guy's aunt, only the uncle. Women have been killed for this and worse, and it's time to stop blaming victims of society. And now, onto the update. Hi everyone. I wanted to say thank you so much for your support. I never thought I would get so much support from strangers than people from my own community. I was, however, expecting a lot of hate towards my mum, considering her profession, but it's less than what I expected. I don't know if this qualifies as a proper update, but there have been a few changes. After I broke the engagement, I have been getting calls from my friends and Javi's family that I am making a huge mistake. My close friends know that my mum used to be a sex worker, but mutual friends of mine and Javi do not know about it. So they're also questioning me if I ever did that myself. Javi did apologize. He said he got carried away by his emotions and that he loves me. Not gonna lie, I love him too. I wanted to get past all of this. I know people have told me that I should not get married to this guy, but I was weak for a moment. Until he told me that he is willing to let things go and start anew if my mum does not attend any wedding functions. I was shocked. Weddings are a big deal in our culture. There are many functions and parties surrounding the wedding. How can he ask me that I do not involve my mum? He told me that because of my mum's past, it would be difficult for his family members to be around her. He convinced his mum with difficulty about this engagement. Also, since his uncle is going to be there, it will only remind him of bad things. At that moment, I realized that I was never a consideration. It was always him and making his family happy. My family is beneath them because we are not from a respectable background and come from homes of sex workers. I stood firm and told him no, it is not going to happen. I will not give in to their demands because the way I see it, my mum didn't do anything wrong. It's funny how quickly people will judge a woman based on her work, that she had to do to feed her kids, but no one will come forward to help her in her time of need. Javi threatened that I'm making a huge mistake by letting him go, and I just left. I do not have the energy to deal with this. I think this news is spreading like wildfire now. I may have to move out of the city because if this news reaches my workplace, I know damn well people will ostracize me, so I might look for a job in a different area. Lastly, I messaged him saying I'm sorry for not telling him earlier about my mum, but I loved him a lot. I am sad that he chose this topic to ruin a 6-year-old relationship. I will be going to the bank and paying back the money he paid for his brother's education. I am still crying and jilted to say the least. Also, I saw that my post was shared in different religious groups bashing my mum, saying that I deserved it. Well, Let me tell you, religious fanatics, that most men who claim to be religious are not at all. My mum had many clients who claim to be religious, including pastors and preachers. So please, before blaming my mum, look inside your house and your family. You might find chameleons hiding within your family too. Edit, people who are asking me why I'm paying him back, it is because I don't want him to use it as an excuse to call me a gold digger who used him for his money. I don't want to be in his debt. In the comments, Awkward Fortune Cookie says, it's funny how men can chastise women for doing something that they are the ones paying her to do. Yeah, like, why is the uncle, who cheated on his wife with a sex worker, allowed to attend the wedding? He broke his vows. You'd think he is the last person anyone would want to witness their marriage. Well, that's because he is a man. Same thing in my culture. Men cheat all the time and go to sex workers, and women are expected to respect that. That's a hell no from this wife. Mind you, that's not acceptable in my culture. Some religious groups promote being submissive to that point, but it's still a no from me. Zanny54 says, good, because you can guarantee the exclusion of your mum wouldn't stop with just the wedding. And I wish terrible energy to those religious asshats who would rather you and your mum be homeless and starve to death for the sake of virtue. Not only would the mum keep getting excluded, I would bet money on the fact that he and his family would constantly use it as social leverage over OP, make her feel less than, like she should always be glad for any scraps tossed her way. I guess me personally, I'm still not on board with paying him back the money, but I do guess it stops him from having any avenue to bash you for those gold digger claims. Which any rational person would see, oh, it's unfounded, he's just being a piece of shit. But I don't think that that man is surrounded by rational people. I don't think that in the slightest. Very much a rock and a hard place situation that you're in right now, OP. I wish you all the best. I think you are making the right choice to move on from this. Anyway, guys, what did you think of this one? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next post is by user AshleyK3, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my husband I was going to divorce him for going to his sister's wedding? So this is happening in real time, and I don't know if my emotions are super high right now, or I'm completely in the right. My sister-in-law is getting married, and I've been helping her plan her wedding, from the DJ to the makeup artist to hair, etc. She asked me to be in the wedding party. I agreed to that. My husband agreed to have me read a prayer at the church, even though I'm not very religious, and to sponsor the wedding. I was never asked for that. Comes to today, her first dress fitting. I'm there with my mother-in-law, my sisters-in-law, and her future in-laws. Everyone was looking at bridesmaid dresses, and so was I. I was then, in that moment, told I was not in the wedding party. I was not allowed to be in the wedding photos, and would have to drive myself to the wedding due to my husband being in the groom's party. I was told that I was basically the wedding planner, and would need to leave after the ceremony while the wedding party took photos to make sure the reception was being set up correctly. I walked away and texted my husband that I was upset, but didn't want to ruin his sister's big moment. She picked her dress, and they continued to look at bridesmaid dresses. I told my sister-in-law I was leaving, and congratulations on the dress. I made it outside and began to cry, and called my husband and explained the situation to him. This isn't the first time his family has done this to me in the 9 years we've been together. They disrespected me and my marriage so many times. I explained I no longer wanted to attend the wedding, and he said okay, but I still am. I told him if he wanted to, that was fine, but it would be the last time he allows his family to make me feel this way. He said I'm being ridiculous, and my family agrees with him. So am I the asshole? I just want to know why your family is agreeing with him. What is going on? Oh, you're the wedding planner? You're not allowed to be in any photos? You have to leave straight away to go deal with the other stuff? Also, plans changed. You're not a bridesmaid, screw you, but you're the ridiculous one here, buddy. How are you being gaslit so hard by everyone around you in this situation? Oh my god. I myself would just quit. I'd just be like, you know what? You guys all suck. I'm out of here. You deal with this yourself. I'm not even going to this wedding anymore. I don't think that ruins anything for your husband's sister. She's an asshole. Everyone around her are assholes. They can deal with the consequences of their actions. My vote, not the asshole. In the comments, 5 Foot Philly says, if your husband goes to this wedding, you will end up resenting him. After that, it's just a matter of time. Cut your losses and go find someone who will honor his vows to put you first, not the asshole. Speech Distinct 8793 says, nope, and follow through with it if he can't stick up for you. If you're petty, cancel everything you had a part in planning. Any money you spent, return any and everything. OP replies, I said I was going to cancel the hair and makeup, and my husband told me that his sister is already in contact on her own. Kind of feels like they used me for my resources. The fact that he knew that detail means he also knew what his sister was doing and they had planned for it. Okay, forget what I said above. OP should pay a process server to serve her husband with divorce papers at the wedding. Forget waiting for the reception. I love this recommendation, especially since it will take the attention away from the bride and put it on the husband. He gets partial blame, and she doesn't have to be there to take the heat. She just needs to make sure to turn her phone off, but don't block anyone. You may need evidence to hand to the lawyer during divorce proceedings to get a better deal. And now, onto the update. So I looked it up to give you the correct answer. Sponsors are the only people you legally need at your wedding. They act as witnesses to your marriage, and they're the ones who will sign your marriage certificate. Of course, aside from the legal aspect, they will also act as godparents to you and your partner. Also, today was the wedding party pre-dinner to get to know one another. I was invited over a month ago with my husband, but I couldn't go today due to it being my mother's birthday. So my husband and I told his sister that I could do the dress fitting, but not the dinner. So I'm confused as to why I needed to be at the dress fitting with all the bridesmaids and the wedding party dinner. She called all week to make sure I still will be at the dress fitting. She was upset, but my mum has lung cancer and she's not doing well, so I wouldn't miss her birthday. My husband texted his sister and told her that we weren't going to come. I'm not sure what she said back, but he was upset the whole dinner for my mum's birthday. The DJ is my brother's best friend, and the makeup artist is my stepsister, so I know I could tell them what's going on and they cancel. Backstory. On Thanksgiving dinner, my sister-in-law asked me and her sisters, 3, to help her plan her wedding, so I wasn't the only person asked to help. I agreed then because I know the stress of planning a wedding alone. I picked out centerpieces and helped with things she didn't know about, something new, old, etc. And ever since then, I have been helping her with vendors and even picking out her wedding song. I think deep down I'm not upset about not being in the wedding, I just wish I didn't look stupid going to the dress fitting and looking at dresses. Like, I wish she would have just called me on the phone and been like, hey, there's a change of plans, you're no longer in the wedding. It was done in front of my mother-in-law, her future mother-in-law, and the fiancé's sisters. I think everyone saw I took it by surprise when I was told. The bride used her little sister to be the one that told me because I know she didn't want to look like the bad guy. Despite me and my mother-in-law not having the best relationship, she doesn't allow her daughter to walk all over me, but she doesn't speak English and didn't know what was being said to me. After speaking with my husband when I got home from my mum's birthday, he said his sister asked him 2 weeks ago to walk her down the aisle due to their father passing away, and him being her only brother, and that if he doesn't attend the wedding, I will be opening the worst can of worms ever. I explained to him that he was supposed to walk with me, and that when I was taken from the wedding, they changed what he was doing. He said he would walk her down the aisle, but not go with them in the limo and not be in any photos. I know he's a huge mama's boy, so I will likely not be married in the upcoming weeks. Also, the petty revenge. I thought about just attending the wedding, and when asked to give my prayer, just mentioning in front of the families how the bride and groom are huge cokeheads. The groom's family is extremely religious, and it would just ruin the wedding. But my husband knows how petty I can be, and he thought that I had a master plan. In the comments, Tired Antisocial Mum says, none of this is okay, and it shouldn't matter if your husband is a mama's boy. I married an only child mama's boy who lived with his mum for years as an adult after his parents separated. He still finds ways to value me and his mother at the same time. I really hope that you don't go and pull back on everything that you had a part of. They can figure it out on their own. This one. Love is not a zero-sum game. More for wife doesn't mean less for mum. The love expands and expresses itself differently. No Association says, wow, I think I would start cancelling everything I had arranged. Time to not be a doormat. I'm so sorry. And now onto the final update. For the last week span, my husband has been trying to make our relationship work. He let me know that he spoke to his sister and she's hired an official coordinator and says she no longer needs my help. She has also fired the DJ and is unsure about the makeup artist. She also told him that she does not know where I got confused and misunderstood the situation of being a bridesmaid. He showed her the messages of her asking me and telling me the bridesmaid dress color to buy. She didn't have anything to say, but told him that she never meant for me to be so confused. He told her he will be walking her down the aisle and then leaving the wedding. He told me I ruined his relationship with his family. He said that I am also losing his family in the process and that they will hate me. I told him that for the last 9 years, his family has never cared about me. I told him that if he was to die tomorrow, no one in his family would reach out to me after the funeral. He didn't have anything to say after that. I think she knows that it's 100% true. He said he would like to continue with the divorce. I think that's the best decision. I was in a pretty bad car accident. I was hit from behind. The other driver was going about 50 miles per hour. I ended up in the hospital and I called my husband, but he didn't show up. He said he was too busy with work. His sister, the bride, lives about 5 minutes away from where the car accident was, and he asked her to go. But she never showed up. I brought that up to him, and he said no one was obligated to go to the hospital until I became conscious. I feel sad that I'm losing such a big part of my life, but I know that I deserve someone who cares about me and will put me first in situations that hurt me. In the comments, Stabinal says, "Not the arsehole. Wow, I am sad for what you have gone through, but glad to see yourself coming out the other side. You don't need toxicity like that, and if you're in an accident, for the person who is supposed to love you not even bothering to come and see you, words fail me. Red flag. Time to move on and rebuild. Good luck to you as you face the sunshine that you deserve." Bloody hell. His wife was in the hospital and he was too busy with work? No. OP, you are an amazing girl. Leave these trashy people in the dust. There are amazing people in the world who wouldn't treat you this way or take advantage of your kindness. He is spineless and his family sucks. Good on you for standing up for yourself. BiteMe717 says, "Not the asshole," and sign the divorce papers in front of him with a smile on your face. Hell, pop open a bottle of champagne and make a toast to him. Tell him that karma is a bitch to people like him and enjoy it when she comes. And don't share a drop of that bubbly with him or anyone else in his family. Honestly, good riddance to bad trash. That guy sucks and his entire family sucks as well. I don't even know if their behavior is excusable. I don't think there's any universe in which anything they did was okay. Glad that you're out of that mess, OP. Honestly, this divorce is probably for the best as much as it sucks. Sending well wishes your way. Anyway, guys, what did you guys think of this one? I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. Posted by user Strong Emu, titled, "Am I the asshole for banning my sister-in-law from my house over tomato sauce? I, 28 female, have an older brother, 32 male. He is married to sister-in-law, 33 female. I get along with her well, except for this one point. If you don't keep an eye on her, she will get into the kitchen and add seasonings to whatever is cooking. She thinks she's fixing stuff, but not all foods need turmeric in it. This Saturday, I received 40 pounds of tomatoes. It took me the whole weekend to turn it into a sauce that I was planning to can. I can it plain and then add whatever seasonings and herbs it needs, depending on the recipe. They came to take a bag of spare clothes for one of their kids, and in the 5 minutes it took me to get it, she managed to get into the kitchen, add salt, pepper, turmeric, olive oil, garlic powder, and Italian herbs to all 5 of the pots that were simmering on the stove. And when I asked her what she was doing, she had the audacity to say, "This sauce needed some taste. I added it for you." Like I've never told her to not touch what I was cooking before. I was so angry that I knew I couldn't be calm talking with her. So I simply walked to my brother, told him to take the clothes and his wife, and that she is no longer welcome in my house. She had followed me, was shocked, started apologizing, but I just ignored her. I added that he should come by tomorrow to take the sauce his wife ruined, because otherwise it would be thrown away, and that I expected 40 pounds of replacement tomatoes. They left, he came back with the tomatoes, an apology letter from her, and an apology carrot cake, which is my favorite. But I told him that I stand by my decision. Now my parents got involved, and since I'm the one that usually hosts, and since she is not allowed in my house, I told them to make alternate plans for Memorial Day. My husband says that I'm in the right, but my parents say that my reaction is way overblown. So am I the asshole? Edit. Since there seems to be some confusion, I am not planning to host for Memorial Day and not invite her. I said I am not hosting. My parents or my brother should host, and I will attend as a guest. I might be angry, but I don't want her excluded. Honestly, this sister-in-law just sounds like a terrible person, and I don't blame you for not wanting to go ahead with hosting the party now. She continually shows you disrespect, and she shows that she doesn't care about disrespecting you and will continue doing it. She will only apologize when faced with consequences, but she won't change her actions. She won't change her intentions. Your approach to this situation isn't overblown. Your parents just don't want to have to deal with her. Sucks to be them, but this isn't your problem. This shouldn't be anyone's problem. She should just be better from the get-go. I'm saying not the asshole, she's the asshole, and your parents are assholes for supporting this and not offering any reasonable solutions or trying to get her to change for the better. In the comments, Do I Want to Know 6417 says, if you don't keep an eye on her, she will get into the kitchen and add seasonings to whatever is cooking. Like, what the hell? This is so boundary disrespecting, disrespectful, and insulting to what you are cooking, and it wasn't even for her. Not the asshole for being furious. I do think she's learnt her lesson though. And OP replies, she thinks we don't season enough, but here's the thing. If I'm making Indian or Chinese, I toast the spices and grind them with a mortar and pestle. My Ethiopian friend says that I make spicier food than her mom. But if I'm making mac and cheese, a burger, or mashed potatoes, of course I'm only using salt and pepper, because usually the flavors are in the sauce or gravy. Even if you didn't season at all, her behavior is completely wild. Who seasons food they're not only not cooking, but not even eating? Who cares if your tomato sauce is totally bland? You already have good advice, but I'm so fascinated by the pathology of this. What the hell is going through her head? Is it an impulse issue? Does she just think that she's a better cook than everyone else? Bizarre. My thoughts exactly. I have a relative that just doesn't season her food, and we all accept it. I'm just gonna offer to make the scalloped potatoes next Christmas. Successful Duck says, so not the asshole. She's crossing boundaries, poking into something where she doesn't belong. There is all kinds of wrong with messing with someone else's cooking. What if you were making something for someone allergic to turmeric? Good on your brother for replacing the tomatoes, and on her for apologizing. That said, you are still in the right for banning her from the house, especially if that has happened multiple times and you have been clear with her that it's not acceptable. If you're thinking about letting her back in, I'd make sure the apology is a real apology first. Not, I'm sorry if your feelings were hurt, but something which takes the responsibility for her actions. I added seasoning to your giant tomato sauce project without asking. This was out of line, and I shouldn't have done it. It's my fault, and I'm sorry. In the future, I'm planning to not enter your kitchen unless invited. Not the asshole. Garlic is alkaline. That would entirely change the processing times to safely can the tomato sauce. She has no idea what she is messing with. The safety of your preserves for the next year. You're entitled to hold to your boundary even after her apology. A cake is a nice gesture, but by no means is it enough to buy your trust back. Posted by user Throwaway9873, titled, Am I the asshole for sending my younger sister money against my girlfriend's wishes? My younger sister, female 25, is working towards getting her master's degree in New York. While she loves the city and school, she hates how expensive everything has become. She does work part-time, but it simply isn't enough. My parents, male 77 and female 73, have been sending her money each month, but since they recently retired, they've had to cut back. To fill the gap, my brother, male 28, and I, male 32, have begun sending some money to our sister from time to time to help her with rent. I have a well-paying job and a close relationship with my sister, so I'm happy to help where I can. However, my girlfriend, female 30, has expressed her dissatisfaction with the arrangement. We've been saving up to put a down payment on a house in the future, and my girlfriend believes that my financial contributions to my sister are hindering our progress. Yesterday, which happened to be the day that I usually send my sister money, girlfriend told me that we needed to reduce expenses, and one suggestion she made for me was to no longer send money to my sister. She believes that my sister needs to learn how to manage her money better and that my brother, male 28, should contribute more. I told her about how I feel a responsibility towards my sister and how my brother doesn't make as much as I do, and while she did acknowledge that, she then said that I was financially naive and said she doesn't want me to be taken advantage of. I was kind of disappointed hearing this, as I made the conscientious decision to help my sister and wasn't falling for some sort of scam. The conversation ended because we both had to go to work, but she told me to not send anything until we further discussed this. During my lunch break at work, I proceeded to send my sister some money and told my girlfriend about this over dinner. She told me that she was disappointed. At this point, I was getting a little annoyed and responded by saying I was not willing to compromise my current arrangement with my sister. Girlfriend got upset with this and left the table. Am I the asshole? Edit 1. I make about $15.5 thousand per month and have been putting away $4,000 to $6,000 each month towards a future house. Girlfriend makes about $7,000 per month, currently saves around $1,000 a month for the house. She said she'll contribute more once her student loans are paid off. I pay for rent and utilities. Girlfriend pays for bulk of groceries. I started sending my sister $1,500 per month since my parents retired. Edit 2. Sister pays around $2,800 per month in rent and $350 a month in transportation. I contribute $1,500 per month, brother pays $750 per month, parents pay $500 per month. Our mother was terrified of sister living in New York City on her own and only agreed if she lived in a nicer area and had a car. I guess my opinion on the situation is, oh my god, your sister pays a lot in rent and oh my god, you make a lot of money. Also, I can see where your girlfriend is coming from here, but it seems like a rock and a hard place kind of situation, and your sister would be forced out into a not nice area of New York City against your parents' wishes if you were to cut off your financial support. Again, reiterating that it's my personal opinion, I think it's best that you do keep helping your sister out because you do have the means, you make a crap load of money, it doesn't seem like it's unsustainable. You're welcome to do whatever you want with your money, and if your girlfriend has a problem with that, seems like she needs to go more in depth and find a middle ground with you. Otherwise, I think you're not the asshole in this situation. In the comments, Exotic Mango 2768 says, "Do you and your girlfriend share finances? If not, then you are not the asshole. Otherwise, you are the asshole." Edit, definitely not the asshole. OP does not share an account with a girlfriend, so he is spending his own money. She does not get to dictate how he spends his money as long as shared expenses are covered, and they are. OP replies, "We don't have a shared bank account. I pay rent and utilities. She pays about 80% of the groceries while I cover about 20%. Well, then one option is for your girlfriend to make or save more money since you are paying rent and utilities. She has balls, I will give you that, to say to the person who is paying her way that you should stop helping your sister. Not the asshole. Your support for your sister is your choice and is reasonable considering your income and expenses. Don't buy a house with someone you are not married to without consulting an attorney, especially if you will be contributing more to the down payment and mortgage payments. Don't get married without talking to a lawyer about prenuptial agreement. I tell anyone getting married to get one nowadays. I've not been married, but I've seen lots of divorces. The few with one made things so much easier. There's a lot of destructive divorces and lots of things like pets and kids being used to just hurt the other person. Think of it as simply, what was yours before marriage is yours after, and they wrote out vehicles, 401k balances, bank stuff, and a few other things. They did get divorced, but it stopped a lot of he said, she said. Stopped destroying each other's things out of spite. Not the asshole. Girlfriend doesn't have to agree. It's your money. Be very careful purchasing a home without very clear agreements on finances. Girlfriend is a partner, not a parent to tell you what to do then punish you when you don't comply. Not only that, when considering his salary, he is only sending his sister $1,500 a month. she is very controlling over finances that do not impact her in any way. But it does impact her because the more he pays, the less that she has to. I ain't saying she's a gold digger, but the way girlfriend demonized his family is very problematic. Not the asshole, but massive red flags getting thrown around your girlfriend, my man. It would be one thing if you were sending so much money that it was affecting your own financial status, or if your sister was lying or taking advantage of you and or your brother, or if your girlfriend was also contributing money and no longer wanted to, or if you were sending shared money. But none of those things are an issue, and literally your sister is just trying to exist in an expensive city, and her extremely loving and generous brothers are choosing to support her, because they can and they want to. That's really beautiful. You should really consider buying a house and continuing a relationship with someone who prioritizes her own expenses so far over yours. She's seriously overstepping and disrespecting. Unless she's not telling you about some hidden fear or worry here that explains her bizarre self-centered stance, what she's trying to force you into is selfish, uncaring, and just icky. And now, onto the update. So my girlfriend and I had a long talk after work. It didn't go well. To summarize, tensions escalated during the conversation. I told her that I planned to continue helping my sister until she completes her degree, and afterward, she would either start working or move back to our parents' home until she finds a job. However, my girlfriend expressed her belief that my sister, and my whole family, is manipulating me and thinks I'm naive enough to send her money regardless of how she uses it. I started to feel increasingly annoyed and defensive by her accusations and asserted that it's my money and I have the right to spend it as I see fit. I then, stupidly, said that if she really wanted us to buy a house, she should have saved more and cut back on expenses like nice shoes, clothes, and purses. At this point, she became properly angry and declared that she couldn't stay in the same house as me, and said that she would be going to her friend's house. Before leaving, she said, "Call me when you stop thinking like an effing idiot." Before I could even think, I replied, "I won't be calling." I feel that I may have irreparably damaged our relationship. Edit 4, updates. I want to express my thanks to all of you for sharing your perspectives and insights. Your input is truly appreciated. Following the fight with girlfriend, I reached out to my brother to confide in him about what had happened. His take was pretty optimistic. However, he advised me to stand firm in my position while also remaining open to fully hearing out my girlfriend and considering the possibility of reconciliation. He cautioned against contacting girlfriend's friend to ask about her whereabouts, as it may smell of desperation, and instead said that he would come over, as he lives about an hour away, so we could spend some time together over a movie and dinner. At this point, I feel drained and numb. It's been a long day, and to be honest, I just want it over. Edit 5, updates. My brother came by and bought dinner. We've been watching The Dark Knight. I don't know why he chose that. Since. Still haven't heard from girlfriend or her friend. For those wondering, I'm a chemical engineer, and girlfriend has been paying about $2,500 per month to pay off her student loans. Edit 6, weekend update. Before I begin, I would like to thank everyone for responding to my original post. Your support and insight means a great deal to me. I also want to provide some additional context about my relationship with my girlfriend. We started dating in January of last year, officially became a couple by the end of March, and she moved in with me in May. In hindsight, I must admit that the pace of our relationship was driven by my infatuation rather than the development of a deep connection. Her fun-loving nature and beauty had an influence on me, causing me to overlook the misalignment of our values. Regarding girlfriend's relationship with my family and friends, she seemed to get along with everyone, although I feel that she never liked my brother. My mother made significant efforts to make girlfriend feel welcome, likely due to her desire for grandchildren. On the other hand, my relationship with my girlfriend's friends and parents was different. I couldn't help but feel that they saw girlfriend as being out of my league for some reason, and some of her friends even told me how lucky I should consider myself to have girlfriend in my life. There were also other warning signs that I chose to ignore, and I want to share them now. Girlfriend wanted to impose restrictions on how often I could visit my family throughout the year. Less than a month after moving in with me, girlfriend leased a BMW, contradicting her previous statements about wanting to pay off her student loans quickly. At the time, I found it strange, but I didn't raise any objections, thinking that girlfriend deserved to treat herself after years of schooling. Over the following months, she continued splurging on expensive clothes, shoes, purses, coats, and more. Looking back, I doubt she was completely honest about how she was managing her student loan payments. Girlfriend regularly urged me to distance myself from some of my friends, citing reasons like them being bad influences or me spending too much time with them. When I mentioned that her friends didn't seem to think highly of me, she shrugged it off, claiming they only wanted what was best for her. Fast forward to today, as most people recommended, I kept my word and didn't call girlfriend. Instead, early this morning, at around 5 a.m., she texted me, suggesting that we meet at a local cafe to discuss our future. I replied with a simple, sure. The atmosphere felt tense, but we did exchange brief curt greetings, before we dove straight into the conversation. She began by expressing her hurt over my failure to call her, repeatedly emphasizing that I needed to be reasonable and prioritize our relationship above all else. I noticed her consistent use of you instead of us or we. When I pointed this out, she claimed that her initiating this meeting was proof of her commitment and that if I were truly committed, I would have called her the moment that she left. At that moment, I chose to remain silent, and I believe she interpreted my silence as her winning the argument. She then shifted the conversation to finances, bluntly stating that our best course of action was to ensure that neither of us carried any debt. According to her, the only way to achieve this was with me to start paying some of her loans. I insisted that this shouldn't interfere with my agreement to support my sister. That was if I did agree to pay her loans, but girlfriend asserted that it would impede our progress as a couple. I argued that supporting my family and progressing our relationship should not be mutually exclusive. In response, girlfriend declared that if we were both serious, I needed to make her the center focus. She then added that even if she did agree to allow me to continue supporting my sister, it wouldn't end there, as these things never do. With this, she then began inquiring about my parents, pointing out their advanced age and suggesting that they would soon require regular support. Without hesitation, I firmly reiterated my stance, that if my parents ever needed any form of assistance, I wouldn't hesitate to offer it. She followed up by asking, even if they wanted to live with you? To which I replied, yes. She pressed further, asking, even if I said they can't? Once again, I responded, yes. At that moment, girlfriend stood up, saying that she was disappointed to see what kind of person I've become, and how she and her friends had always sensed that there was something off about me. In response, I stated, if you believed that, you shouldn't have moved in. She was unable to offer a retort to that. She then began making remarks about how it was only a matter of time before I would beg her to take me back. I firmly told her that the only thing I would be asking was for her to take belongings and return my keys. She tossed the keys at me, and before making several comments, asserting that she didn't need me, that I had wasted her time, and how greatly I disappointed her. I said, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm no longer obligated to listen to you complain. And with that, she stormed off. About an hour later, I got a text from one of her friends saying that they were coming with our girlfriend tomorrow to get her stuff. I'm hoping that once they do, I can put this whole thing behind me. In the comments, Time Cover says, wow, she really pulled out him paying off her loans when she was already on shaky ground with the sister thing. She was with him for the money, and she got too greedy and revealed it. And they've only been with each other for a year and a half? I could expect this conversation after 5 years of dating, but that girl had him emotionally chained and ready to run his bank account dry after only 16 months? Well, thank goodness he cut short his vacation to the south of Pants and came to his senses. On a different note, girlfriend declared that if we were both serious, I needed to make her center focus? I'm jealous. I wish I had balls this big. So, what OP is saying is, ex-girlfriend expected him to fully fund her above her means lifestyle while she does nothing to contribute. Therefore, he has to cut off any and everything that may cost him her money. Yikes. She thought she found herself a cash cow to milk dry and was shocked when things didn't go her way. I mean, it seems like the only thing they ever talked about was money, as if they're married with 10 kids and need to budget. Well, once again, good riddance to good trash. Not saying she's a gold digger, but I think she was one. Honestly, OP, you are much better off without someone like this in your life, and your bank account will also be much better off from this point forward. That's all I have to say on this one. I want to know what you guys think of this down in the comments below. Our next post is by user Lozvaboy, titled, "Going on my first ever date tomorrow, I need advice." I'm 17 male and going on my first ever date with a beautiful girl that I met in college. Unfortunately, I'm very shy and took a shot in the dark when asking her to go on a date with me, so I'm not sure how this is going to go because I never thought she'd say yes. We're going to meet up tomorrow at around 7 p.m. I don't know what people usually wear, say, or even do on dates. I'm thinking of bringing flowers for her, but instead of a bouquet of roses, I'm going to bring a single rose. As I searched on the internet, and it said that it means more to a girl if you bring a single rose. Please, does anyone have any advice for me so I don't look like an idiot? And any suggestions on what even to talk about? In the comments, bringing a rose is very sweet and she might really like it, but she's more likely to think that that's a bit too much, so I'd advise against it. Good luck on the date though. And OP says, "Thank you. I was thinking it might come off too strong, Lamau. I'll hold that one back." I think that's for the best. You seem like a sweet kid though. I'm rooting for you. Eternal Moment Cult says, "There is nothing to say or do. If you're comfortable and confident, the saying and doing will flow naturally. Lift heavy weights and do power poses before the date." And OP replies, "Lol, I'll keep that in mind. I do feel confident, it's just that sometimes I feel like my mind gets blank and I lose my train of thought so quickly. Hopefully that doesn't happen tomorrow." Bicep123 says, "No gifts, just show up. Make sure you showered and smell nice. Make sure you have a nice dessert place scoped out for after dinner. Always have a plan. It's not romantic if you have to look up on your phone where to go next if she wants to extend the date." And OP replies, "Perfect. There's a nice little spot for desserts 10 minutes away. I got everything planned in terms of where we're going, it's just conversation that I'm a bit rocky on." And now, on to the update. So I posted about going on my first date a while ago. Now I'm in love with this girl. I, 17 male, never thought I'd be in love like this. I thought this kind of love only existed in movies. I love everything about this girl. She's beautiful, smart, elegant, funny, loyal, and honest. I can't love anyone more. I love how she confides in me with all her problems. She can be herself around me. When I was young, I used to dream about girls being interested in me. I used to dream that a girl would look my way and see me as desirable. I was young looking at girls like he needed to be some sort of god to get them. Now I've got a girlfriend that I believe would become wifey. I swear I'm going to work so damn hard to make sure that I make something of myself. I do a good job showing that I'm not obsessed with her, but truthfully, I'm bloody whipped. Can't wait to propose to her when I get a little older. Rebecca, I love you. Lol, I know this is a weird off my chest, but I just needed to write this. Now in the comments, Fire Sculpting says, quote, "When I was young." Who wants to break it to him? Me, a 28-year-old, now feels ancient because of that. Bruh, no one warned me just how old you start to feel in your 20s. I'm looking at all these teenagers and am just baffled that that was me a few years ago. I feel like a grandma half the time. I scolded a teenager in a grocery store the other day for trying to climb on a wobbly shelf. No clue who that kid was. Just instantly went into nanny mode and said very firmly, "Are you trying to break your neck? Get down from there." Of course, my 5'2" ass looked down the center aisle and asked an employee for a grabber or a ladder. Sat there with them till they had their item, and I walked out of that store and suddenly was just like, huh? Why did I do that? Why was I acting like that kid's mom? But yeah, PSA to all the high schoolers out there that will strive to mature in their 20s, you are gonna feel old. I'm sorry. I work with 18 to 22-year-olds as a rule, and they never seem so keen on life advice, lol. To be fair, I wasn't usually into it at that age either. Their problems are so simple too. Communicate how you feel, your wants and desires. But that's too complicated, so instead, they keep playing emotional games. They are always shocked that I watch SpongeBob too. Like, young blood, I'm 32. I was literally a kid when SpongeBob came out originally. I think the point that I really started to view 18 to 24-year-olds as woefully young and inexperienced was around 28 or so for myself. I think the main issue with the disconnect between the older generations and the younger generation is that at that age, a lot of young people, myself included, are really insecure about their sense of adulthood, if that tracks. It's a weird sort of age range where you're expected to behave like an adult, but hardly anyone is willing you to give the respect an adult gets. Dependent on your personal situation, but I think it's still a common experience to not really being taken seriously or made to feel like your voice counts for anything, even well into your 20s. It sucks because I feel like a lot of young people have genuinely worked hard to get where they are. You are still at the point where there are very few things that you truly own. Nearly everything you only have because someone else, your parents or adults in your family, put in the foundational work to allow you to get it, but a lot of hard work was still inputted on your end to earn these things. When you give life advice, I think it hugely helps to be as straightforward and as genuinely open and honest as you would be with any adults. I doubt there's really anything you can tell an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old that they're not prepared to take on given the right circumstances. You knew how it was to be confused, to have to stumble awkwardly into adulthood with a bombardment of often condescending and occasionally unhelpful, if not harmful advice that some adults gave you. I remember getting advice about a breakup from my much older and wiser, fully adult brother that ended up stretching out the agony months longer than it needed to last if I had just done the opposite of what he recommended to me. It happens. We're fallible, even as adults in our 30s and 40s and so on. Just keep that feeling in mind when you communicate with young people. Posted by user Me Being a Throwaway, titled, "Would I be the arsehole if I said my coworker's brother's death wasn't a tragedy due to how preventable it was?" Last week has been quite a disaster for my coworker, 30 female. You can call her Allie, etc., but anyway, I remember her being confident and content the day that we went into work. Her brother Rhett, 26 male, would end up falling off a roof of his house hours later. From what I've heard, he was conscious at the time of the hit and believed he was okay and that he felt fine, so he didn't call emergency services. Turns out, he was really messed up internally and died. And when I found out Allie's brother died, I was in shock and saddened by her loss. I couldn't imagine losing a sibling. However, when I heard more information, I couldn't help but think he was reckless. What was he doing on the roof? Why didn't he just call for emergency services just in case? If that was me, I would have definitely done that, especially knowing something like this could put my family through grief and sorrow if it ended fatally. It was unfortunate that they had to lose him, but when I think of tragedy, he's just not what I think of. Careless and reckless deaths don't belong in the same context of tragedy as other types of death. Now, I would never ever say this to Allie, but I've considered venting this to other friends or coworkers, but I just don't know if they would see my point or not. Many of the coworkers especially seem like the type who would disagree with my stance, but it only makes me feel stronger in a sense. A reason why this would come off as asshole-type behavior is that Rhett was a minimum wage worker from lower class income, and he may have just decided to let it go because he was afraid of being in steep medical debt if he went to the hospital. I do see the point of how class would have an effect on his death, but I don't know if that was really his reasoning. I don't know him well, and I'm not a minimum wage worker. Would just simply venting to someone I knew who really knew Allie or Rhett other than Allie be out of line, or is it okay? There's bait, and then there's whatever that was. Oh my god. Anyway, OP, I just think categorically you're the arsehole and you should keep these thoughts to yourself. Being a minimum wage worker from a lower class income and hospital bills probably had nothing to do with his choice in not getting medical care, when I think it would have been logical to get medical care from emergency services in that case, yes. But unfortunately, that did not happen. It seems like the logical thing to do, I understand, but the way that you are putting this forward makes me think that you're a complete asshole. Do not share these points of view, especially with anyone that knows Ali, because I feel like that will come back to bite you severely. You may just cause yourself to fall off of a high place if you were to say anything about this. So without saying anything, I think you're the asshole, and if you did say something, even more the asshole. In the comments, Uncle Ceiling says, "You would honestly be the world's biggest asshole. Seriously, don't gatekeep someone else's grief. Just keep your mouth shut. You're the asshole." Peaceful Warcat says, "You're the asshole. There is absolutely no reason to vent about a situation that doesn't concern you beyond you trying to put your 2 cents in. Not every thought needs to be expressed out loud." Well, it's because he's feeling excluded, so he's reacting like a child. You're the asshole. Why would you even have a stance on whether or not it's a tragedy? It's a tragedy to his family, therefore it is a tragedy, whether you think it was preventable or not. Find something else to spend your mental energies on. For God's sake, don't go gossiping to your co-workers that you think your other co-worker's brother's death wasn't tragic enough for you. He should go give his take to his co-workers. They'd find out how much of an asshole he really is, and he would be completely ostracized. Likely deserves it at that. I get the feeling that this isn't their first bad take, but it would add extra ire onto what his co-worker is already feeling for the death of her brother. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Imagine losing a loved one and then hearing this BS from some douche noodle at work. Yeah, this dude sounds like a huge jerk. Probably has his whole personality revolving around, "I'm just being honest and you can't handle the truth, and not my fault I'm smarter than everyone and have a wider perspective," and then wonders why no one likes him. And you're right. While it might be enjoyable for us to see him get his comeuppance, it would really suck for her. Unless he tells his co-workers, they realize what a D-bag he is, treat him like shit, and they never tell her why. Win-win. And now, onto the update. So this was last year, and I know I, 29 female, originally posted on the Am I the Arsehole subreddit, but I've always found this community nicer and more understanding. I do regret some of my behavior received when other Redditors criticized me. I talked way out of line, and while I did get some harsh responses from the woke community, calling me elitist, plus some internet snobs trying to diagnose me, but I still believe that on my end, I still messed up as an asshole. Ali, 31 female, did find out some time about why I believed my beliefs. For reference, her younger brother Rhett passed away from head injuries sustained falling off his house roof. I said to other co-workers that he shouldn't have been on his roof because that was reckless. I stated his death can't be tragic because he should have called emergency services and that him working minimum wage wasn't an excuse. I know my behavior is wrong now. I feel guilty since Ali found out because she is a sweet woman and I didn't want to be her enemy. She never brought up her family again in front of me, which made me feel even worse because she was acting like she wasn't allowed to talk about them in front of me when I never would say that to her. I know she really misses him regardless of how anyone perceives her beliefs, and I never want to get in the way of that. There was a time where I genuinely thought I would lose my job after the way some people took my controversial words of his non-tragic death. I do not have any biases, and I love everyone. My faith is an important influence on my daily life, and I believe it has brought me here a better person. I do not know Rhett well, and have not met him enough times to have any true opinion on him anyway. I know he and Ali were sweet siblings based on what others have said at the time. In November, I profusely apologized to several people, including her and her family, with mixed results. As of now, Ali has been a lot more annoyed with me, and before she used to be nice and not let the small stuff bother her. It's like she was mad at me before, but she didn't focus on that as much, and tried to be nice anyway. A lot of the reason why she's gotten less tolerant of me is her new bond with a fellow co-worker, Olivia, 31 female, who has never liked me, and always tells everyone how I am so rude and hard to work with. I don't care about Olivia, but she's really affected my life within the year. There are even some people who dislike me who didn't yet work for the company during the time Ali's brother died, so this is unrelated. Ali thankfully has been happier, and everyone, including me, really enjoys her. I still have a wonderful life. I married in January, and I'm currently 10 weeks pregnant, but I feel like her life has gone up while mine goes down. I know it will all be better, and I've had a much happier year than last year, but the loneliness of having few who relate to me is a terrible feeling. But it's a part of life, and I will move forward no matter how long it takes. In the comments, Clown Screwer says, imagine someone you knew died and someone you work with, considered somewhat of a friend, immediately was like, that's not a tragedy. Sorry, but that behavior is unforgivable. It's not even rude, it's just heartless. OP replies, it wasn't immediate. I felt bad, but then concluded after getting details. I should not have worded it that way, and I feel horrible this past year. Since he suffered trauma to the head, don't you think it's probable that he wasn't able to think clear enough to even call for assistance? And OP replies, I don't know the whole story. Well then how can you decide whether it's traumatic or not if you don't know the whole story? His death was tragic. I'm guessing Olivia isn't wrong. OP replies, I do not want to hate Olivia, but her persona is always against me. Some people are bad influences. Or some people just see that you're truly a shitty person. Captain Tripp says, there's a reason children are taught, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. If you haven't apologized, then why do you even feel bad for your situation? You shat on a work friend when they were weak. If your partner died, how would you feel? Life pro tip, work on your empathy. You have no reason to have a stance on this event which did not involve you personally. Being cruel isn't cool. And OP replies, I mentioned in the post that I have apologized. Well, yeah, but you're still holding on to your attitude. It sounds like your fate is just an outer covering that you wear and not something in your heart. You were hateful and cruel. Frankly, what you're suffering is not a speck of what you deserve. Your attitude towards other people makes me worried for your husband and future child. It sounds like you're missing the empathy part of your brain. I am serious about this. You should be in therapy, because what you see as a one-time foot-in-mouth mistake appears to be just the tip of the iceberg of psychopathology. OP replies, are you trying to diagnose me as a psychopath? No, I suggested therapy based on your behavior. OP replies, I am not a psychopath. Everyone has to learn in life, and this is another time for me. Anger Poop replies to OP, literally no one said you're a psychopath. And the fact that you think that someone suggesting therapy automatically suggests you're a psychopath, you really need therapy. Man, I just want to keep reading these comments because it's just OP replying to everyone. It's so funny. Anyway, guys, I think we can conclude that after a year, OP still hasn't learnt their lesson and they're taking nothing away from this. Thank you for updating us at least. I don't know how to feel about the fact that nothing has really changed for you. Anyway, guys, what do you think about this one? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next post is by a throwaway account titled, Would I be the asshole for asking to hang out with my in-laws without my sister-in-law because she is awful? So my, male 38, wife's, female 36, sister, female 34, is awful. Narcissistic, possibly bipolar, grew up treating others badly and getting away with it. Meanest gal I know, and her parents enable her behavior big time. She's threatened me before, and now my wife has no contact with her until she apologizes to me, which I know will never happen. I'm on a work trip for the next 6 weeks, located only 30 minutes away from the in-laws. Normally we live 20 hours away, and we never see each other. I like them a lot, even though they enable sister-in-law. In-laws are asking to hang out with me, but here's the catch. Sister-in-law got fired from her job 3 weeks ago because she threatened her boss. And now she lives full-time with her parents, and from what I'm told, goes with them everywhere. Would I be the asshole if I told my in-laws that I'd hang out with them, but only if sister-in-law wasn't there because of how awful she's treated me in the past? I feel like it'll cause them to get upset with me and possibly ruin our relationship, which is what I don't want. Honestly, I guess only you can choose whether that is a risk that you're willing to take, OP. You know these people a lot better than us. But with the information you've given me, I'd say that you're not the asshole for wanting that. I wouldn't want to be around her either. She sounds crazy. Although, as is the case with enablers, I don't think it's likely that they are not going to be attached to the hip with this crazy woman. So, while I don't think you're the asshole, I don't think it'll go your way if you do ask. In the comments, Mickey Star says, "Not the asshole. You were just telling this to your in-laws. You were not forcing them. They will not know that you are uncomfortable with your sister-in-law if you don't tell them. Ultimately, it's up to your in-laws whether they will do anything about the situation or not. She threatened you. If she shows up, tell them it's restraining order time and mean it. You have the threat to her boss and the subsequent firing to back it up too. If she shows up with them, don't say a thing, pick up your stuff, and leave." And OP replies, "Thank you, I think you're right. If your wife is no contact with your sister-in-law, it will only make sense that you would be no contact with her as well. I hope it goes okay for you." OP replies, "For sure, I have been. We just haven't been no contact with her parents, but they are really trying to push the narrative that everything is fine and you two should just make peace with sister-in-law rather than accept that sister-in-law is wrong. I don't know if they'll ever come around, which sucks." Absolutely not. We cut off my husband's family mainly due to the mother and sister. However, now we've started to slowly go out for lunch with just the parents. If you don't want to make peace, they need to respect those wishes, especially if they want their other child around. Maybe a little voice of reason here. I'd talk with your wife and carefully craft a message to your in-laws. Something like, "I'm only 30 minutes away and I'd love to spend some alone time with just the two of you. As you know, wife and sister-in-law aren't talking right now, and I'd really appreciate it if it could just be the three of us. At the end of the day, both women are their daughters. Eventually the sisters will likely make up, likely for the parents' sake. It's best to be the person of reason and compassion in situations like this, as it goes a long way." And OP replies, "My wife has clarified that she will not make up with her sister unless her sister sincerely apologizes to both her and me. Wife said she'd rather never talk to her family again than keep the peace. We are both big believers in not being pushovers in that regard." Not the asshole at all. You set the boundary and you give them the choice. If they ignore your feelings and show up with her anyway, then they aren't showing you the respect that you deserve. I would say, "I'm happy to get together with the two of you, but sister-in-law has been nothing but unkind to me, and I don't wish to have any interaction with her at this time." I think that is a very reasonable request. And OP replies, "This is 100% what I'm going to do. Man, it'll be awkward, but necessary." Or how about, "It'd be great if the three of us could get together and then make reservations and treat them to dinner. Good luck." And OP replies, "Thank you. I'll let you know how it goes. It'll probably be super awkward." And now on to the update. So I went ahead and reached out to the in-laws asking if we could speak on the phone. I pulled no punches. I told them how hurt and uncomfortable sister-in-law makes me feel and that I can't be around her. Their first reaction was to laugh, stating that it's ridiculous you're afraid of your 110-pound sister-in-law. I calmly told them that they knew what I meant, and that if they didn't want to discuss this seriously, then they won't see me at all. They quickly backtracked and told me that sister-in-law can't apologize to my wife because my wife refuses to talk to her. I told them that sister-in-law knows that she's in the wrong, and that if they want this situation resolved, then sister-in-law needs to initiate. They agreed, but they think that sister-in-law, being prideful and narcissistic, will never be the first to reach out. I told them that it's unfortunate, but it appears as if wife and I will just settle with being no contact with sister-in-law for the rest of our lives. In-laws are not happy with this, but have agreed that they still want to be a part of our lives, so they'll settle with hanging out with me alone. There is still the possibility that they'll bring sister-in-law along with them, but I doubt they'd jeopardize losing me and my wife by doing something that stupid. It's not the update that I wished for, my ideal update. In-laws realize their daughter is in the wrong and tell her as such. Sister-in-law apologizes, even though I know she'll never mean it, and then we just play nice for the rest of our lives, maintaining low, if not no contact. I just wanted them to emotionally support my wife, but they just don't love her like that. I guess it's taken a huge toll on my wife. She's seeking therapy to deal with this, but how would you feel if your parents basically told you they care more about their vindictive child than you, because they'd rather not deal with parenting the bad child? It's ridiculous. Wife and I know that this is not how we'll be raising our kids, that's for sure. When the time comes to teach our kids about the bad people who live in this world, sister-in-law will be our example. That's all, folks. Thank you for listening to my rant. I do anticipate sister-in-law might catch wind of all this and send me a scathing text in the next week or so. Hopefully she won't. I'll let you know if anything else happens, but unfortunately, I think we're just not one of those families where love is enough. Depressing, ain't it? In the comments, Mr. Shine the Diamond says, "Proud of you. Good job." Secret Ad says, "My sister and I had issues when we were in our 20s. My then girlfriend, now wife, suffered the collateral damage. I was young and dumb and let my girlfriend/wife fight some of my battles and was not fully aware of the BS that my sister was doing. We were on non-speaking terms for a while. I eventually at one point told my sister that she could go F herself. Luckily, that was 10 to 15 years ago, and in that time, a few things went down, such as my brother dying, as well as my sister not really having me to blame anymore for her failures. Long story short, my sister has never apologized, but I think she realized that holding grudges isn't worth it. Maybe not today or tomorrow or next year, but hopefully your family figures it out. We never thought that we would be on good terms years ago, and today it's not perfect, but it's definitely way better than it was." Marcelins says, "Good on you for being honest with them. I hope they have enough respect for you to not invite her. Good luck." Abadatha says, "I feel this. My sister was the golden child and I the scapegoat. We had a bad, outright hostile relationship for 20 plus years. Only within the last 3 years have we actually developed a relationship. She's still a narcissist, but she's not as bad as she was. There is hope, OP, but not a lot of it. I wish you well and offer my support." Yeah, and me too, OP. I wish you all the best in this situation and dealing with it. It sucks that people choose these kind of hills to die on, even though they absolutely know they're in the wrong, but there's just some error inside their brain that's just like, no, we can't apologize for this. We're better than that. We're better than them. I'll never understand it. Sometimes they regret their decisions, sometimes they don't. Life is so weird sometimes. Anyway, guys, I'd love to know what you think of this down in the comments below. Our next post is by user Am I the Asshole Throwaway 329, titled, "Am I the asshole for insisting my partner skip a work event? I, 32 female, have been with Paul, 34 male, for 4 years. A year ago we were in a car accident. Paul was driving and 100% at fault. Paul had no injuries, but I broke my back. I was in a back brace for months and am still going to PT. After I was out of the brace, I started going to the gym and running, and at this point, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. I'm really proud of the progress I've made. A month ago, I found out that there was a 10K race on the 1-year anniversary of the accident in a mountain town about 3 hours away. I thought this would be a fun and positive way to spend the day and to celebrate my recovery. I suggested this idea to Paul, my 2 best friends, and their partners. The plan was to drive there Friday afternoon, run the 10K Saturday morning, and spend the rest of the weekend exploring the town. Everyone was on board. Paul recently started a new job. It's fully remote, and he hasn't met his co-workers yet. He's supposed to fly to SF to meet his team the Monday after our weekend trip. We knew this when we made our plans. A few days before our trip, Paul told me his bosses now want him to be in SF on Sunday because they got box seats to a Giants game and they want him to come, so he would no longer be able to come on our trip. I thought he was joking because he makes fun of corporate kiss-ass culture, but he was serious. I told him to explain the situation to them and that they can't expect him to be available with less than a week's notice. He said that he already told them yes, and he didn't want to backtrack. So I asked him to tell them he forgot he had a wedding to attend or something like that, and he said he didn't want to turn down the offer because it would be a really good networking opportunity. I suggested he join on Friday as planned and drive back late Saturday or early Sunday to catch his flight. He said no because he didn't want to drive 6 hours round trip for just 1 day. I suggested he fly out of the regional airport nearby, which he also shot down because it would be too expensive. He makes good money, so this wouldn't be a financial burden. I was almost in tears at this point, pleading with him to come and telling him how important it was to me. When I realized he wasn't going to budge, I stopped trying to convince him, but I did let him know that I was hurt and angered by his decision. The morning I was supposed to leave, Paul was trying to be affectionate and sweet towards me, but I'm still pretty upset. so I was admittedly pretty bitchy to him and rejected all attempts at affection. Now he's upset with me for ruining our last day together and also pressuring him to skip his work event. I think he's an asshole for prioritizing a baseball game over a celebration of my recovery, especially considering he's the one that caused my injury in the first place. My friends are on my side, but I'd like some unbiased perspectives. Honestly, it felt like the elephant in the room bringing up the fact that he was the one that caused it, and I can see that reaction going many different ways with many people. I'm on your side though, OP. He blindsided you, he knew that this event was going on, and unfortunately, the fact is that it was his fault that you broke your back. I don't think you were holding this against him, you were not holding it over his head, but he's being unreasonable in this situation. He is not being a supportive partner by being there with you every step of the way, as he should be. This event, while yes, it is important, he had the ability to strike it down, but he went behind your back, said yes, didn't say anything, and then sprung this on you. I genuinely think it's only fair that you bring that right back at him. Because you feel terrible, why can he not feel terrible for his actions, for his choices as of recent? I'm saying not the asshole for anything you've done in this story. I think he does deserve it. In the comments, WestMap4218 says, not the asshole on the initial part, but then you said, especially considering he's the one that caused my injury in the first place? That sounds really, really nasty. Guilt-tripping him for the rest of your life with him won't be good emotionally. Is the whole celebration of your progress a moment to rub his nose in the fact that he caused it? Good luck. OP replies, I realize how that comes across, but I do want to say that I never said or implied to Paul it was basically my inner monologue. I'd be lying if I said there weren't any resentment issues from the car accident, but it's something that I'm working through. The celebration is exactly that. It was a really shit year for me. I was unable to work for 6 months. I was in an unbelievable amount of pain. I wanted to celebrate how much progress I've made, and that's how I've always framed it to Paul. It was never an intent to guilt-trip him. Well then, right or wrong, resentment is obvious, as are guilt trips. Affectionate Fox replies, well, she didn't tell him that's how she felt. You can't control how someone feels if she's feeling upset or resentful by the accident. This event could have been her way of closing that chapter, and she needed Paul there for that. I don't know why you expect humans to not have negative feelings. Life says, she had the right to feel resentment, whether unconscious or otherwise, but it's not always intentional or obvious. But think of it the other way. He surely knows he was 100% at fault based on the post, but would blow her off for a baseball game? Could be a few things going on here. Either he's an utter asshole, he's concerned about getting ahead in his new job so he can support her in need, or he feels so much guilt that he finds it hard to deal with. Regardless, these are all his problems, and he should be supporting her rather than running away. In Lower Orbit replies, in a relationship, if they want it to last, it's their problem. Sounds like couples therapy, and probably individual would be beneficial here if they're both struggling. Katrin Chen replies, you can't make every problem in a relationship a their problem. Some things are just a you problem. You can support your partner, sure, but your own physical and mental health is always your responsibility. No matter if you have caused the problems yourself, or it wasn't your fault you're in a bad place. OP isn't even fully recovered physically and worked very hard for it. The least that can be expected is the partner to work very hard on himself and accept and work through the fact that he caused this. If he can't, then that's a him problem, and he has no right to complain about OP being mad at him for not making an effort. Addie Gok replies, if he is choosing to attend an effing game over celebrating her recovery, which he was responsible for, then he sure as hell is not trying to make up for anything. And he's blaming her for legitimately being upset about his choice. I can only imagine what happens if and when she voiced her emotions about the collision itself. It also feels like her resentment is stemming from his unwillingness to put a small amount of extra effort into showing up for something incredibly important to her that was planned well in advance of his sudden baseball game. He also made this unilateral decision to change their plans, miss her milestone moment, and celebrate her recovery entirely on his own without consulting her or considering her feelings or needs in this moment. Personally, if I found out that one of my new employees prioritized a baseball game above the recovery of his partner, especially if there was the opportunity for them to still show up but didn't out of pure laziness, I'd be incredibly disappointed and likely see that employee differently. Not the asshole. Exactly. Like, I'm with him on certain points. Like, this could be good for his career, and it probably would suck to do so much driving, but I don't see why he shot down her plan of going on the planned trip, then flying to the game from the closer airport, even if it's a little more expensive. While some of his points may be valid, it sounds like he made zero effort to try to accommodate something that's important to her, or even acknowledge why it's important to her. Exactly. Flying would be an investment in the career if he truly believes he should go earlier, which I doubt, to be honest. Posted by user Am I the Asshole 87 Throwaway, titled, Am I the Asshole for abandoning my siblings? I'm not so sure how to format this other than just jumping right into it. I, female 17, am the oldest of 3 living with my 2 siblings, female 14 and male 10. And also our mother. Our father left when my brother was born, and afterwards, we moved states closer to family for help. Since then, I've been helping my mum with raising my siblings the best I can. We've had family come over to help when I was busy, and my mum was at work, but for the most part, it was just the 4 of us. When we moved, I was placed back in school as soon as I could be. I've always been more quiet than most, and living in a new state only made the social awkwardness worse. But eventually, I met another girl around my age, and we started to become good friends. The girl, Alana, and I started doing a lot together. It took only a couple of years, if not less, to be considered like family. A little over 5 months ago, Alana and I started dating. We took it very slow and kept it to ourselves. Last month, when we hit 5 months, she convinced me to tell my mum. She was fine with the ex-boyfriends I've had, and based off prior comments, seemed to support the LGBTQ+ community. Last Sunday, I decided to tell her. Alana spent the night because she wanted to be with me when I told my mum, so in the morning we both sat her down with us at the dining room table. When we told her, she freaked out. She said all sorts of angry things at us. My girlfriend and I tried to keep our cool, but before the conversation was over, I was in tears, and she was clearly pissed. That was the only time I've ever sworn at my mother. I left the house for a few hours. I needed to relax and calm down before making any hasty decisions. When I returned later, I opened the door to see my suitcase packed and sitting next to the couch. I took the hint, grabbed it, and left again. I've been staying with Alana since, but it's difficult because her parents don't know about us either, and they just know my mum and I got into an argument. This week, my phone's been blowing up with family members criticizing me for leaving my siblings and my mum like that. I can only assume they've been given one half of the story, but maybe I'm wrong. My mum hasn't called or messaged since. I feel sorry, but at the same time, I don't know if she understands how she hurt me. So Reddit, am I the jerk here? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be an asshole for leaving my mum and siblings to fend for themselves. This may be seen as an asshole move because I have been helping them all out for the past 10 years. Yeah, but you didn't willfully leave the house, did you? You were forced out, and then the narrative was spun in a way that you just abandoned everyone to the rest of your family. I don't know why you're saying that you left them. You didn't leave by choice. That's like saying a sailor willfully abandons a sinking ship instead of going down with it. You don't really have much choice, do you? Just from that alone, you're not the asshole in this situation. Your mum is a broken person, and I do hope that she comes round, apologizes for the damage she's done, and makes things right. But it doesn't seem likely given how this story has gone. Not the asshole. In the comments, Secret Werewolf 1942 says, "Oh sweetie, not the asshole. Have a virtual mum hug. Your actual mum sucks, and I would very much like to shake some sense into her. Put her on blast to your family. Let them know she kicked you out and why. Either you'll find allies, or it doesn't matter because those bridges are burning anyway. If your school has a GSA, reach out to the teacher sponsor. They should be able to direct you to help. Seconding the virtual mum hug. I know it can't make up for how awful your actual mum has been, but hope it makes you feel a little bit better. Not the asshole. Anyone who throws out their minor child is more than likely the asshole, but doing it for the child being LGBT+, guarantees it. Yup, you don't get to just pack your kid's stuff without discussion and kick them out. Mum has permanently damaged this relationship in ways I bet she cannot even fathom yet. There are, on rare occasions, times to decide a minor child needs to leave the home. Simply coming out is never, ever one of them. More virtual mum hugs. I'm so sorry your mum has failed you like this. Spread clearly untrue rumors about you and generally making sucky decisions all around. But remember, those are her sucky decisions. You are not abandoning anyone. She made these choices, not you. Unusual Promise 8503 says, you are aggressively not the asshole. You didn't abandon anyone. Your mum abandoned you due to a bigoted perspective. Try to retrieve all important paperwork from her house. If it's important to you, don't be afraid to let relatives know that she kicked you out as opposed to whatever lies she has been spewing. Stay safe, take care of yourself, and be gentle with yourself. And now, onto the update. In my last post, a lot of you sent some sweet comments my way. I appreciate all the support. Even some of the more controversial comments did provide some great insight. I took a lot of these to heart and went to see if I can fix things. Firstly, I called my father. Our relationship is strained, being separated and not seeing each other often, but he has made it to some of my bigger events since the divorce. Double digits, sweet 16, mostly birthday stuff, but sometimes other things. He never wanted us to move away, just felt that he couldn't handle the third kid at the time. I digress. I called him and it went to voicemail. I found myself crying into the phone as I relived the past 2 weeks, but I made sure to word it as, Mum kicked me out because I have a girlfriend. He called back a few hours later and said he'd see what he can do to help and will keep me updated and asked me to do the same. Secondly, on Tuesday, I talked to Alana about us telling her parents. Between people saying I should get their support and those saying I shouldn't in fear of more backlash, it wasn't an easy choice. I was hoping, worst case scenario, my dad would be able to help, and in the best case, we'd have 3 adults rooting for us. She was hesitant, seeing how things went with my mum, but ultimately agreed. We sat her parents down similarly to my mum. When I say we, I really meant that she did most of the talking. I was still worried things would go wrong. She started off by simply explaining why I've been here for over a week during class finals. We tried coming out to my mum, which created an argument and led to me getting kicked out. Her father said that he wished that we had told him sooner, and I'm sorry for failing you two, for making this feel like an unsafe place to be who you are. Alana's stepmom and dad talked for a few minutes before coming back with new rules. They wanted their couch back. If that meant dusting off the air mattress from when we were kids, or just getting some extra blankets, they didn't really care. We do us, so long as it isn't illegal and we don't get into trouble. But that said, since I was now under their roof in a slightly less temporary way, I'd start having to follow the same rules Alana did. Curfew, grades, things like that. All of which I agreed to. Her parents are going to take us back to my house today. I wanted to give my mum another chance. I mean, I don't get how you can just walk away from someone after your entire life. I'm either going to get these documents that I need, or my mum back. In the latter case, I still don't know if I'm going to go back to sleeping there quite yet. I'm still hurt. After talking to my sister, she understands and would rather me stay away if needed. My brother's a little confused, but says he just wants us all to be happy. Thank you all again for your overwhelming support and advice. In the comments, OKEb says, Opie, you should not go back to that awful place except to grab your stuff. You deserve so much better than bio-mom. Your girlfriend's dad gets that and is trying to make his home safe and accepting for you. Take it and run. You will be a massive asshole to yourself if you move back in with your bio-mom. Opie, please listen to the other posters. It's not safe for you back there. Please, please, stay away and stay safe. Protect your emotions and your heart. sending you hugs and the promise that it gets better. Glum Hamster says, aside from it being messed up for Alana to tell you to come out to your mother when she hadn't done it herself, it's probably best to see if you hear back from your dad and keep staying at Alana's house. I'd also recommend telling the family that your mum kicked you out, not you left. If she's willing to lie about how you left, she's willing to lie about not treating you fairly if you move back in. And OP replies, this was something I wanted to clarify in this post if I wasn't limited to 3,000 characters after seeing people's reactions to the first post. She wanted the two of us to start coming out together. That's why she was with me when we first told my mum. My mum seemed supportive, and her parents never really hinted one way or another until we told them. Telling one supportive person is easier than trying to tell two unknown people. Neither of us knew how it would go, so I don't fault her. She feels awful about it still, but I'm trying to reassure her that there was no way of knowing. Y'all are 17. I'm sure your girlfriend just didn't know any better. This probably would have happened even if you told her folks first. If she's remorseful, that means she's willing to learn and grow from this. So in that case, don't be too harsh on her. I see how it worked out, and it's a terrible irony that your beliefs about your parents were reversed. My son came out to me second, his stepmom first, his dad third, and my first gut reaction was, why wouldn't I be first? Of course, I didn't say that out loud. I could see how easily my son could have kept quiet longer if his stepmom had had a bad reaction. Stacy3536 asks, how did it go when you got back to your mom's? OP replies, she wasn't even there, she was at work, but all the documents we needed were left on the table. So I guess that's that. Guessing my dad called ahead to make sure everything was ready. I know it has to hurt to be treated this way by your mum, but at least your girlfriend's parents are supportive. If anyone else in your family tries to say anything else to you about leaving, tell them you were kicked out and what really happened. And yeah, that's all we have for now on that story, guys. If there are further updates, I will be sure to read these again and let you guys know what happens in the future. To OP, I hope that only the best comes out of this for you, because that is a terrible thing to have to go through with someone that you should be able to trust with your life. Unfortunately, that's just life sometimes. Anyway, guys, I'd love to know what you thought of this one down in the comments below. Let me know. Unexposed is by user Waste Public, titled, Am I the asshole for not inviting my mum to my baby shower? So background, I, 21 female, am 7 months pregnant. I got pregnant after my antipsychotics cancelled out my birth control. It took months of therapy for me to realize the blame isn't on my son, and I'm somewhat happier. My son is also my parents' first grandchild. My baby shower is in April, just 3 weeks before my due date. My aunt is planning it and is making the invitations. So far, it's all 3 of my aunts, siblings, grandparents, and any cousin who can make it, along with any of my friends who want to come. I asked my ex-stepmom, as my dad left her for my mum 5 years ago, if she wanted to come. This woman helped my grandparents raise me and treated me like her own. I love her. She said yes, by the way. My mum, on the other hand, before she came back 5 years ago, I didn't see her for nearly 10 years. So I decided not to have her or my dad there because I want that day to be about my son and I without the drama. Well, my dad found out and thinks that it's shitty of you to leave out your own mother when it's her first grandchild. I replied with, if y'all were actually there to raise me, I'd reconsider inviting you. But since you decided to ignore your 4 children, I'ma guess you'd do the same to your grandson. They haven't spoken to me since. What makes me wonder if I'm the asshole is that my little sister, 15, has taken their side. I love my sister, and so her bashing me hurts. Everyone else is on my side, and so I brought it to Reddit to ask for unbiased opinions. Unfortunately, as it stands, OP, your sister is only 15 years old. Therefore, she has not fully developed. She doesn't have a full grasp of what these people have done to you, it sounds like. And I would say it's an easy bet that she has been heavily influenced and guilt-tripped by these people in order to bash you and take their side. As much as this hurts, I don't think that solely her being on their side means that you have any ability to be the asshole in this situation. I think that your hurt is valid, I think that your decisions around your own baby shower are valid, and your parents have spoken with their actions. They haven't spoken to you since. To me, that's pretty cut and dry who the asshole is here. I'm gonna go with you're not the asshole, OP. In the comments, Trusted Triangle says, not the asshole. She wasn't there when you needed her, and even if she was, the invitation is totally in your hands. You are not obligated to invite anyone. Elderwin says, not the asshole. 3 weeks before your due date, you don't need unnecessary stress. You explained yourself very clear, and they should honor it. Maybe your parents are pressuring your sister to make you change your mind. And OP replies, I wouldn't be surprised. When Mum came back, my sister was 10, and that's when the trouble started. She started getting into fights, smoking, drinking, running away, and sleeping around at the ages of 11 to 14. Every time our grandparents would try to discipline her, she'd run to Mum until it blew over. So their bond is a lot stronger than what I even want. So your mum corrupted her? That's terrible. And OP replies, luckily she's calmed down the last year. Her best friend was killed when they were 14, and that prompted my sister to get help. Unfortunately, Mum still has a hold on her. Primary Criticism says, not the asshole. It's your baby shower, you get to invite whoever you want. They may be your parents legally speaking, but you don't think of them as your parents. They may not like it, but that happened because of their own decisions. Not the asshole. I guess she only wants to be there for appearance's sake anyway, and is probably pressuring your sister into changing your mind. Stick to your guns, and congrats on your upcoming arrival, and good luck. And now, on to the update. Hi everyone. It's been a year since the first post, and in honor of my son turning 1 today, I thought I'd give you all a little update. First, my baby shower went off without a hitch. My ex-stepmother ended up backing out at the last second due to her own personal problems at the time, and she convinced me to invite my parents. For the most part, they behaved. I don't know if they were completely sober at the time, but my aunt and brother kept an eye on them. Second, my son was born May 16th at 9 pounds 15 ounces and 21 inches long. He is such a healthy, beautiful baby, I couldn't be prouder. For those who are concerned about my mental health, while I still struggle, I've been taking my medication, continuing therapy, and leaning on family. My mum still hasn't met her grandson. I have a strict rule stating no drugs, and you have to be completely sober around my son. They thought that I was joking until I blocked them. My dad is currently 6 months sober. Mum is leaving for a sober house today. I am proud of the first step. Lastly, I want to thank everyone in the last thread. Your energy and thoughts carried with me throughout the party, and it ended up being amazing. Thank you all. In the comments, Imothro says, 9 pounds 15 ounces and 21 inches long? Good grief, girl. You birthed a whopper of a baby. Are you okay? Congrats on your new arrival, and I'm so glad things are going smoothly. And OP replies, lol, I had a 20-hour labor. 7 hours in, I asked for an epidural. 15 hours later, I had to have a C-section because his big head got stuck. Whoever said the first baby is the best lied, and I just want to have a talk. Sai can't think of a name says, congrats. I love reading happy updates. It sounds like everyone's made fantastic progress in the past year. And OP replies, it definitely took some arguing, cold shouldering, and lots of discussions, but I'm happy they're on a better path. I'm happy I'm on a better path. I had no desire for a better life because I was comfortable. With my son, I'm now going to school and am ready to quit my job so I can spend time with him. My husband has a very high-paying job, so we fortunately can afford it. Ciabatta Paws says, this is a great update, and congratulations on the birth of your son. Having read your original post, I do have to wonder if your parents had something to do with your ex-stepmom backing out at the last second and convincing you to invite them instead. But it sounds like it worked out regardless. And OP replies, I don't think they did. My ex-stepmom is a very strong-willed woman. It's what drew me to her when we first met. My parents had known her for years before I was born, and I think my mum felt betrayed. That, and my siblings and I treated her friend more like a mother figure. She had very personal reasons for not attending, and I accepted it because, as much as I wanted her there, her own grandbabies needed her more. Well, I'm glad things are looking up. Did your ex-stepmom meet your son already? And OP replies, she's actually watched him a few times. She's busy with her own grandkids, so it's been a few months, but we talk regularly. Congratulations. I'm glad everything seems to be working out. Did your sister come around as well? And OP replies, sorry for the late reply, been busy with birthday party in school. Yes, she did. I don't know what woke her up, but I think it has something to do with her seeing her nephew grow, our dad getting sober, and mum refusing to at first. Whatever the reason, we're a lot closer than before. We're 6 years apart, so it's hard for us to have common ground, and I wouldn't change it. She's slowing down with the alcohol, but still loves a good party. But as long as she's safe and knows I'm here, I'll be happy. Our next post is by user PositiveElk8110, titled, Am I the asshole for cancelling the entire vacation when I found out that my stepdaughters deliberately hid my daughter's passport to get her to stay home? I've been married to my wife Beth for 5 years. I have a bio daughter named Jessica, she's 18, and I also have 2 stepdaughters named Monica and Leah. They're 25 and 28. Both are single moms and live with us currently. There has been issues about my stepdaughters asking my daughter to babysit the kids. Jessica didn't have a problem with it at first, since this is what she does to earn money, but since her stepsisters don't pay her much, she'd just refuse to babysit. We worked this out by having my wife take care of paying for the babysitting. I planned a family vacation for 3 days and everyone wanted to go. However, both Monica and Leah suggested that Jessica stay home and watch the kids since Beth doesn't want her grandkids to come. They said it's because the kids are used to Jessica and hiring another babysitter would cause issues, and also said that Jessica isn't too fond of our destination, but it was obvious that Jessica wanted to go. They insisted and Beth offered to pay her double, and there was just a lot of back and forth on this until I demanded they stop bringing it up. We were supposed to go last week, but when everybody had bagged their bags and it was time to go, Jessica found out that she didn't have her passport on her. We searched her bag and then went home and searched there. Beth and my stepdaughters kept insisting that we go back to the airport or else we would miss our flight. They insisted that Jessica stay at home with the kids. They even told the new babysitter to go home because she was no longer needed. I refused to go and kept searching for the passport till Monica admitted that she helped Leah hide Jessica's passport to get her to stay home with the kids. I was livid. I tried to get her to tell me where it was, but she said Leah had it. Leah denied, so I threatened to cancel the vacation, and that's when they gave it back. I decided to actually cancel the vacation and blew up at both of them and berated them. They stayed upstairs for a while, and Beth refused to speak to me and said that I punished my stepdaughters for worrying about their kids and wanting them to stay with someone they know. I got told I overreacted and ruined the trip for everyone. Editing to mention that kicking my stepdaughters out isn't possible since my wife co-owns the house that we currently live in. Oof, dude, I don't know, man. Your wife's enabling this behavior. Your wife is supportive of this. This is an entire shit show, my man. This is not good. I would not stay. I can see why you're staying. I would get the hell out of there. I would cut my losses. I'd stay away from enablers because this sounds pathetic. This sounds so sad that these two get enabled like that. Listening to that entire story has been making my skin crawl. Honestly, your actions are admirable in this one, and you and your daughter are trying to come to common ground here and make it fair for everyone. Sadly, you have 3 bad apples that are spoiling the bunch, and I'd toss them out for good measure, but that's just me, man. Not the asshole. In the comments, Interesting Bug 8878 says, not the asshole. To be honest, I would have kicked your wife and lazy no-good stepchildren out right then and there and ended the marriage. If they were 12, I might understand this level of entitlement and immaturity, but in their late 20s? And what the hell is with your wife? She should have roasted them for pulling this BS. Yeah, there is no way the wife wasn't in on this too. She absolutely knew about this plan. OP needs to ditch all 3 of them. I was just about to say this. The wife obviously knew what the stepdaughters were up to, and her response proves it. Also, who tells the babysitter to go home? They were counting on OP being more concerned about going on the trip than finding his daughter's passports. The stepdaughter and wife are trying to treat OP's daughter like a modern-day Cinderella. I'm not saying that he should divorce his wife, but he should seriously reconsider if his marriage, in its current iteration, is a healthy situation to be in. If you won't say it, I will. He should divorce his wife. With how on board Beth was to leave his daughter home the second they couldn't find her passports, I don't believe for a second that she wasn't in on the plan to hide it. I think it's disgusting when parents prioritize their new spouse over their existing child, especially when that new spouse has shown their parenting role model is the evil stepmother from Cinderella. OP is wrong to be with this woman, and to let her and her daughters be around his daughter at all? I highly doubt this is the first time they've all openly treated his daughter like shit, and if he's a good father, this kind of behavior should be a deal breaker. Quote, kicking my stepdaughters out is impossible since my wife co-owns the house that we currently live in. OP really just needs to move out then. The house will sort itself out in a divorce, and everyone will likely be moving out. This whole post talks about how Jessica is being taken advantage of, but OP fails to see that the wife and stepdaughters are massively taking advantage of OP as well. Two women in their mid-20s who seem to feel entitled to do nothing more than make babies is not going to just end with the two small children that are currently in the picture. OP is going to be supporting them and supporting them and supporting them some more until there is nothing left. The line should have been drawn a long time ago. Pursuing a divorce is probably the only way to get OP's wife to see that she's not the only one who gets a vote on whether or not two baby-making mooches live under the same roof and get to treat other family members badly. Also, isn't stealing someone's passport a federal crime? And withholding someone's passport in order to press them into domestic servitude? Baby mamas need to do some growing up, not the asshole. Edit to add, I'm not saying a federal tactical team should be set in, I'm just saying OP has a lot of leverage to get the house cleared out. Raven of my heart says, not the asshole. You don't just have a stepdaughter's problem, you have a wife problem. I would rethink your current family situation and how your daughter is being treated. And OP replies, you're right. After seeing where my wife stands in this, I'm beginning to consider some things. Ask your daughter how your wife treats her when you are not around. Posted by user Told Him the Truth, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my dad the real reason why I don't want to go on vacation with him and his family and potentially ruining his marriage? I am a 17-year-old male. When I was around 9, my dad, 39 male, started seeing a friend of my mum's. He cheated on my mum. They married, and they now have 3 kids together. My dad asked for custody, and he was granted to have me on weekends, and he seemed happy to have me and always tried to include me in everything, but it was kind of weird and frustrating. He even tried to make me call his wife Mum, and went for full custody several times. Since being with his wife and making me accept his new family was more important than spending actual time with me alone, I stopped going to his house. When I was 14, he tried to fight for full custody after my mum started dating my stepdad, who's a nice guy, but I told him to stop. The other reason why I stopped going, I never told my dad this one, is because his wife was so hostile towards me. My dad used to pay attention to me when I was there, so I think that she didn't like it that way, and one day told me behind my dad's back that I was an obstacle to my dad's happiness and that I should just stay with my mum full time. Their anniversary was 5 days ago. I didn't want to go, but he called my mum to threaten that if I didn't go, he would go to court. He took his 4 kids, including me, his wife, his parents, and his parents-in-law to celebrate at a nice restaurant. Once there, he said that he had 6 tickets for vacations. I didn't say anything, but then he looked at me and said, "One is for you," and I said, "Thanks, but I'm not going." He seemed angry and said, "Okay, I had enough. Why don't you want to go?" "Just because," I said. But then he asked the same question 5 more times, so the 6th time I said, "Because I hate your wife." And then he started asking why, over and over again, so I ended up telling him the mean things that she said to me. He was seemingly uncomfortable, but told us to finish our meal. No one talked for the rest of the night, and after we finished, I asked my stepdad to pick me up. I haven't spoken to my dad since. He just sent me a message asking if I've changed my mind about the trip, but I said no. My cousin told me that my dad is staying at my grandparents' now. His wife texted me yesterday calling me a brat and asking if I was happy for potentially destroying my half-sibling's home life, but I just ignored her. My cousin says that the kids are hurt and are crying because my dad isn't at home, and she says that I should just have said other things or agreed and then tell him later that I wasn't going. I think this is just so incredibly messy, and they say one thing but do another. Your dad had every right to hear this from you. There was no need to cover this all up. You're old enough to voice your feelings. And I feel as though you made it more than obvious that you didn't want to say this in public, that this was not the time and place to say this, yet he made you say it in front of everyone, in front of the whole family. Surely he had some inkling of what you were going to say. That's not your fault for the words that came out that he forced out of you. I'm gonna go not the asshole for this one, OP. In the comments, Davey Captain says, not the asshole, and your cousin can shut the hell up, and your stepmother can start taking some responsibility for her actions too. Your dad does seem to be trying to do right by you though. I'd cut him some slack. It's unusual for parents, fathers, not to unquestioningly choose their new partner over their old kids, and he does seem to believe you. My sister told our father what our stepmother was like to her, rude and dismissive, and he hasn't spoken to my sister for a decade now because she disrespected his wife. Grim Salem 666 says, not the asshole. You were put in a really awkward position, and you were signaled out by your dad at a restaurant full of people you probably didn't want to be near. Aside from his parents, I'm hoping they're good people. Let's take the obvious facts in this that make you not the asshole. 1. Your dad cheated on your mum with one of her friends. 2. He forced you into a family role you weren't comfortable in and insisted on having a one-on-one talk with you. 3. Your mum's friend/infidelity partner to your dad is hostile, as you mentioned, and has probably verbally harassed you more than you let on in this post. And 4. Despite you giving your dad an answer, he still texts you later asking if you're still going. My only advice is if you still want a relationship with your dad, go to him. Tell him one-on-one how you feel. Everything. If you want someone there with you, bring someone you trust to be a neutral third party. Tell him simply, Dad, I love you, but I really dislike how you went about everything in my life, trying to take me from my mum multiple times, forcing me to try and be a happy family with the other woman that you not only cheated on my mum with, but someone who was insanely hostile to me, someone who has been sending me texts blaming me for ruining your marriage, when all I did was get overwhelmed and frustrated at you pressuring me to do things again. I love you, but I can't handle you forcing situations on me and not even trying to get my input on it or ask how I feel about it. My feelings matter too, not just yours, and all you've done is think about yourself and how you feel. And if things don't change, by 18, I'm going to stay with my mum permanently. Or something along those lines. It's up to you, of course. You don't have to say anything. You don't even have to reply to your dad. You are clearly hurt. Yeah, he didn't know about how she treated you, and yeah, you didn't tell him, but that doesn't change how he acted. He forced you into situations over and over again, and you got fed up. No one blames you for that, and I honestly hope this marriage does fail, because at the rate that it was going, your stepmom would have probably turned their kids against you. She will probably still try to do that, and most likely succeed. I do suggest therapy for this because it sounds like your stepmom put a lot on you. I also would recommend you telling your mum everything if she isn't already aware. If your stepdad is also a nice guy like you said, maybe confide in him too. You need someone to talk to about your feelings who won't be one-sided, but still will comfort you. Your feelings are valid. You're allowed to feel hurt. You're allowed to feel angry. And please, for the love of all things good, block your stepmom, but also show your dad the texts. This kind of behavior isn't warranted for anyone. And now, onto the update. Well, since a lot of you guys have been messaging me, asking about my situation, and I'm finally done with my finals, which means that I have time, here is an update. I didn't show my father the mean messages that she sent me, as many of you suggested, because I don't want this woman going around saying that I destroyed her life and all of her crap, so I didn't really do it and I won't. That's on her. My dad has been so apologetic, and a few days after I posted here for the first time, he picked me up to hang out, just the two of us. He apologized and even cried for not realizing before what the issue was. He said it was never his intention to make me feel that way. He promised he would never let her get between us again. He begged me not to hate him. I don't know where he got that from, as I love him, because he doesn't want me to cut him off since he wants to be there for my wedding and also as a grandpa to my kids, and then he got a little emotional saying how much he loves me, etc. He basically promised to be a better father. He asked me if I changed my mind about the trip, and I said yes, I'll go, it'll be just me, my dad and his kids. It will be in August, and I know she is furious for being excluded, but hasn't texted me or anything. So that's it. My dad and I talk more often, and we also hang out more. I've been to his house a couple of times, just for a few hours, but his wife and I just ignore each other. So that's it, I guess. I'm going on the trip with my dad and my half-siblings. Someone asked me about the relationship I have with the boys. Well, we get along, thus we can't really do a lot of things together since we have different interests. They are 8, 7, and 5, and all male. But I love them, and I know they love their big brother. They say it, lol. Since some of you texted me to know how things are going on, here is a little update. My dad thought that it was a great idea to ask my girlfriend to come with us instead of his wife. I was hesitant at first, but then my girlfriend said that she wanted to come with us, so it's going to be my dad, his 3 kids, me, and my girlfriend. It's great. I can finally have time alone with my dad without her around. And now, on to the final update. She lost my trust. I've shown her, and only her, some of the messages that my dad's wife sent me a couple of months ago. There, she was insulting me for ruining her marriage. I didn't want my dad to see the messages because I didn't want to cause any more drama. While we were on a trip a couple of weeks ago, my girlfriend unlocked my phone and showed my dad the messages, even though I told her I didn't want to. My dad got mad at me for not showing him the messages before, but didn't say anything else for the rest of the trip. I got really mad at my girlfriend and have barely spoken to her since. The thing is that my dad and his wife are not in a good place now. Clara already has moved to her parents, and my siblings stayed with my dad. According to my dad, this is a break to rethink the whole relationship. But I feel like garbage. Dad seemed so happy before I told him why I hated his wife, and now this has just gotten worse. It seems like I destroyed my dad's happiness, and, which is worse, my siblings. My dad says that this isn't my fault, and that I'm the one who is to forgive him. That doesn't prevent me from feeling like I destroyed their happy family life. I don't think I can trust my girlfriend after this. Comments. Dude, your girlfriend may have overstepped here. I can see why you'd feel like she has betrayed your trust. We all deserve agency to deal with our issues. However, sometimes you gotta be cruel to be kind. This part right here concerns me a lot. Quote, the thing is that my dad and his wife are not in a good place right now. Clara has already moved to her parents, and my siblings stayed with my dad. None of this is on you. The general tone of your post just screams, my own issues make me suck at advocating for myself, and I need external help to stop accepting abuse. Dude, your partner being shit to one of your sons is an excellent reason to re-examine the whole relationship. If your dad hadn't done that, he would have just been a shit father. Whatever they decided to do about their marriage is on them. You reconsider just why you don't deserve a loving father that stands up for you. You do. We all do. Take care, OP. Darian Lilly says, that scene in the restaurant, though, shows the dad has zero emotional intelligence. Tell me 6 times. He shouldn't have brought so much pressure to the situation. He needs to sort out his ways of dealing with stuff. Wait, the woman who banged her friend's husband is not a good person? Poor OP's cheated dad. How could he have known? To be serious though, OP needs to stop trying to carry everybody else's baggage. You are not ruining anything by protecting yourself and telling the truth about someone's behavior. If they don't want to experience the consequences of treating him like shit, then they need to behave like decent people. He is also way too forgiving towards his father. I hope he treats his potential future children better and doesn't take his dad as a role model. Quote, his wife texted me yesterday calling me a brat and asking if I was happy for potentially destroying my half-sibling's home life. I nearly dropped my phone laughing at this hypocritical bullshit. Seems self-reflection is really low on her list of character traits.